Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening, during which time the Land of Rain would not see significant upheaval. For now, all Hanzo needed to do was to quietly manage Hidden Rain Village under the guise of being deceased, serving as an instructor within Akatsuki. As Hanzo made his decision, Byakuya also received rewards from the system. Hanzo has joined Akatsuki. You have received Hanzo's fluid technique. Hanzo has joined Akatsuki. You have received water style, instant water and advanced water style, gift pack. Hanzo has joined Akatsuki. You have received an egg of salamander, a series of rewards left Byakuya very satisfied. The benefits of Hanzo joining Akatsuki exceeded even Hidden Rain Village joining Akatsuki. However, it made sense to think about it. Hidden Rain Village itself was very weak and had always been propped up by Hanzo alone, maintaining its status as the 6th great ninja village in name only. In the original plot, after losing a series of S-rank powerhouses like Hanzo, Nagato, and Conan, the Land of Rain was reduced to its original chaotic state. After claiming his rewards, Byakuya produced a wood-style seed from his hand and handed it to Hanzo. Looking at the wood-style seed in Byakuya's hand, Hanzo's expression turned grim, but he swallowed it nonetheless. Byakuya, do you really distrust me so much that you resort to such methods? Byakuya watched as Hanzo swallowed the seed and said earnestly, Hanzo-sensei, this is beneficial for both of us. I'm not like Yahiko, a hot-blooded fool who leaves everything to chance. Hanzo's face darkened, and his favorable impression of Byakuya diminished somewhat. Nevertheless, with such cunning and strategy, it seemed Akatsuki wouldn't be tossed around like he had been. This time, he had misjudged and was betrayed by Denzo. Otherwise, if he and Denzo, the advisor to the Hokage, had joined forces, the battle would not have ended so disastrously. Now serious, Hanzo turned to Byakuya and said, "Oh yes, there's something important I forgot to tell you. Denzo, who cooperated with me, might still be in the Land of Rain. You might not know Denzo. He's an advisor to Hidden Leaf Village's Hokage, similar in status to." Here, Hanzo paused and glanced at Byakuya. Byakuya ignored Hanzo's gaze, shaking his head. Hanzo-sensei, you mean Denzo-senpai? I know him. Denzo-senpai? Hanzo noticed Byakuya's way of addressing Denzo and began to look suspicious. Could there be a connection between Byakuya and Denzo? Could Byakuya be the real person cooperating with Denzo? Byakuya nodded slightly and continued, yes, senpai. Like Hanzo-sensei, Denzo-senpai is someone I respect. When I was still weak, Denzo-senpai invested in me and provided me with a lot of help. Later on, Denzo-senpai provided many plans for seizing power, helping me become the leader of Akatsuki. He's a kind and amiable senpai. The last time we met, he ran off too quickly. Otherwise, I would have liked to catch up with him. After all, without him, I probably wouldn't have become the leader of Akatsuki. Senpai, catching up. Upon hearing these keywords, Hanzo breathed a sigh of relief. He roughly guessed Byakuya's background. It seemed likely that Denzo, like himself, had initially sought to use Byakuya, only to be outmaneuvered and forced to flee the Land of Rain by Byakuya's hand. As for the respect and catching up that Byakuya mentioned, Hanzo understood them in reverse. Byakuya had likely long planned how to deal with Denzo, so there was no need for him to worry too much. Instead, he was more worried about Denzo, ironic he knew, since he was trying to use Byakuya. He could only imagine Denzo's demise soon at the hands of this little demon. But, oh well, he should focus on how to retire gracefully within Akatsuki. The era of the demigod had passed. Chapter 87, Client. Several hours after Byakuya left the Hidden Rain Village's prison, rumors spread within the prison that Hanzo had chosen to end his own life following prolonged interrogation. The former demigod of the ninja world, known for his illustrious reputation, opted for suicide to preserve his final dignity amidst disgrace. The rumor didn't circulate for long before the current leader of the Hidden Rain, Yahiko, declared it as false. Former village leader Hanzo of the Hidden Rain had not perished but was merely imprisoned within the village's confines, restricted from freely leaving until the end of his sentence. Faced with Yahiko's clarification, some ninjas chose to believe it. Another faction, however, remained convinced that Hanzo had indeed perished. Otherwise, why would members of Akatsuki need to step forward to refute the rumors? They dismissed Akatsuki's actions as a mere attempt to deceive. Yet for most ninja, whether Hanzo lived or died no longer mattered. The era belonging to Hanzo had ended, and the new era under Akatsuki was just beginning. After spreading the rumor of the demigod's death, Byakuya brought Hanzo to the Anbu headquarters. He planned for Hanzo to assume the role of Anbu commander and part-time instructor, responsible for rooting out ninja with ill intentions toward the Hidden Rain and for training new recruits in Anbu. Once Hanzo donned the Anbu fire masks, he met Byakuya's subordinates. Byakuya's subordinates appeared spirited and battle-hardened, clearly experienced elite ninja. However, after observing their training process, Hanzo began to doubt the origins of these individuals. While their combat abilities were commendable, their ninjutsu and physical styles were diverse, ranging from leaf village techniques to sand and stone village secrets. How did this motley crew of ninja come together? Could they have been captured? Thinking this, Hanzo looked to Byakuya, who nodded. These individuals were all once spies infiltrating Akatsuki. Influenced by Akatsuki's ideology, they eventually chose to join the Anbu of Akatsuki. You'll need to find a way to train them into capable elites who can protect the Hidden Rain. Hearing that Byakuya's subordinates were former spies from various countries, Hanzo's expression darkened. The composition of these individuals was indeed too complex. Wasn't there a concern about their potential betrayal? However, recalling Byakuya's methods, Hanzo also found solace. Under the dual suppression of wood style and seals, even if these individuals managed to escape, they would have no chance of survival. Moreover, based on his understanding of Akatsuki, these individuals might actually accept Akatsuki's ideology. After all, apart from Byakuya, most members of Akatsuki were naive fools. At this moment, Byakuya suddenly turned to Hanzo and asked, "Do your best. If it doesn't work out, then so be it." Feeling underestimated by Byakuya, Hanzo replied in a subdued tone, "Although I'm no longer at my peak, training these people will be well within my capabilities. Just give me a few months, and I'll have them all trained into Jonin." "I hope so." Byakuya's tone carried doubt. "Just trust me," Hanzo said earnestly. Having agreed to become an instructor in the Anbu, he would fulfill his promise. In the process, he would also vent some of the resentment brewing within him through the Anbu. In these past few days, he had accumulated quite a bit of anger. Listening to Hanzo's assurance, Byakuya turned and left. Byakuya wasn't particularly interested in watching Hanzo educate new recruits. He preferred to return to his office for some rest. Returning to his office, Byakuya sat down in his genuine leather recliner and began tapping his fingers on the desk, contemplating today's tasks. At his level, he worked whenever he pleased, enjoying an extremely free 007 lifestyle. This was the biggest difference between working and entrepreneurship: one worked for oneself, the other for a boss. However, even without a boss above him, he still had his own concerns, namely dealing with the client who provided tasks. Only by satisfying the client could he continue to earn a steady stream of coins. After a brief moment of relaxation, Byakuya took out paper and pen from the drawer, starting to write a letter. The content of the letter was simple: a brief report on recent work, along with thanks to the client for their assistance, looking forward to the next collaboration. Once the letter was written, Byakuya used spirit summoning jutsu to summon his ninja hawk. After dealing with the root spies, Byakuya did not dispose of his spirit summoning beast, partly because the giant eagle was very impressive, and partly to maintain contact with Denzo, to see if there could be future collaborations. In the operation against Hanzo this time, Denzo had put in tremendous effort. If Denzo hadn't framed him and reached a collaboration with Hanzo to deal with Akatsuki, Akatsuki might still be hiding in the mountains, without any chance of swallowing up the Hidden Rain village. In this respect, Denzo might even be Akatsuki's greatest hero, without the needing any rewards. Byakuya had always admired Denzo for his self-sacrifice, illuminating others. As for Denzo betraying him, those were insignificant matters. If it weren't for his existence as a golden finger, he would have run away long ago. With the golden finger and his knowledge of the subsequent plot, he had always held the initiative, playing Denzo like a puppet. Moreover, during the negotiations, he actually had a way to prevent Denzo from escaping. After serious consideration, he chose to abandon the pursuit. On one hand, he didn't want to expose too much of his strength. If techniques like the Mayfly technique were discovered by Black Zetsu, it would be very troublesome and could seriously affect their future plans. On the other hand, living Denzo is more useful than a dead one. As long as Denzo is there stirring up trouble, Hidden Leaf Village will remain in chaos for a long time. Hidden Leaf Village is the strongest ninja village in the ninja world. If they were to unite, it would be very detrimental to the future development of the Akatsuki. Most importantly, both he and Denzo are mature ninjas who prioritize interests over personal grievances. The empty promises of drawing them in with grand schemes don't work. To win them over, you need tangible benefits. And once there's a possibility of progress, betraying allies is just a routine operation. In the future, there may even be opportunities for Denzo to work together to weaken Hidden Leaf Village. After a moment of emotion, Byakuya tied the letter to the leg of the ninja hawk and let it fly. Soon, the ninja hawk turned into a black dot in the sky and disappeared into the distance. After completing all this, Byakuya turned and looked at the black spider beside him. This dark figure, resembling a pitcher plant, is currently his only boss, Black Zetsu. After disappearing for several days, Black Zetsu finally appeared in front of him again. Byakuya was somewhat puzzled about Black Zetsu's disappearance but did not ask. Quietly watching the ninja eagle soar, Black Zetsu looked at Byakuya, who had already become the leader of the Akatsuki. Byakuya, congratulations on becoming the leader of the Akatsuki. We're one step closer to our plan to dominate the world. Chapter 88, Nagato's unease. All of this is thanks to the help of Black Zetsu-senpai. In front of Black Zetsu, Byakuya showed great courtesy. Without Black Zetsu's contributions in yin-yang style, and wood style, ninjutsu, he wouldn't have found it so easy to take over Hidden Rain Village. What's more important is that, compared to Black Zetsu, who has been a hidden puppet master for thousands of years, Byakuya is still very young. Black Zetsu was very satisfied with Byakuya's respectful attitude. This ninja he personally recruited is even more obedient than Madara Uchiha. After some pleasantries, Byakuya looked at Black Zetsu and directly asked, Black Zetsu-senpai, do you have any instructions this time? Should our next step be to attack the 5 great nations, or should we lie low for now? Let's lie low for now. We still don't have the strength to attack the 5 great nations. Upon hearing this, Byakuya became somewhat anxious. But what about reclaiming our country? The land of the Hidden Rain is too barren, and even Yahiko and Nagato oppose my proposal. Only by attacking the 5 great nations can we. I understand your impatience, but this time we really can't rush it. Akatsuki might have defeated Hanzo, but that doesn't mean we can't take on Hidden Leaf Village or Hidden Stones Village. The timing isn't right yet. Pausing for a moment, Black Zetsu continued, when the time is right, I will help you reclaim your country. Black Zetsu wished he could revive the Tentails in the next second and free his mother from her seal, but centuries of failure had taught him not to rush things. They needed to accumulate enough power to proceed with the Eye of the Moon plan. Moreover, this time, besides Indra's power, he also planned to use Azura's methods. Once he controlled all the major nations of the shinobi world, he didn't believe the Eye of the Moon plan could fail again. He had come this time to find Byakuya and caution him. If Byakuya prematurely launched a war against the Land of Whirlpools while he was away, trying to reclaim his own country there, it would definitely alert the 5 great shinobi villages. Seeing Byakuya's struggle after hearing his words, Black Zetsu also began to worry. Explaining the Eye of the Moon plan to Byakuya in the future would be another difficult problem. For now, they could only take it step by step, as every one of the subordinates and lackeys he had his eye on was causing him some concern. After a brief discussion with Byakuya, Black Zetsu prepared to leave the office, intending to use the mayfly technique. Besides searching for Byakuya, he had other intelligence to gather. Suddenly, Black Zetsu remembered something and added, oh, one more thing. I have a subordinate who will be graduating soon. They might join the Akatsuki organization in the near future. With that said, Black Zetsu departed. Sensing Black Zetsu's movement towards Nagato, Byakuya's smile diminished somewhat. His words just now were not only to maintain the facade of Mariu Byakuya but also to probe Black Zetsu's current intentions, even those of Madara Uchiha. From Black Zetsu's words, it seemed they currently had no immediate plans to directly attack the 5 great shinobi nations. This was undoubtedly advantageous for both himself and the Akatsuki. With Akatsuki's current strength, occupying the Land of Rain was already pushing its limits, with even smaller neighboring countries being too much to swallow. However, the last sentence from Black Zetsu had given him a valuable reminder and a significant amount of intelligence. The new member recommended by Black Zetsu was likely going to be Obito Uchiha, which, if true, would make the Akatsuki's future prospects more intriguing. While Obito lacked sentimentality, he was skilled in dealing with Hidden Leaf Village, which was crucial. Most importantly, Obito's inclusion meant a decline in Madara Uchiha's influence, which was good news. Younger Uchiha were always easier to handle than older ones. He was already looking forward to meeting Obito. Not long after, Black Zetsu found Nagato and Konan within the Hidden Rain Village. At this moment, Nagato and Konan were in an orphanage, caring for the war-displaced children. Originally, the Hidden Rain village had no orphanages, but after the Akatsuki took control, an orphanage for sheltering children and caring for the elderly was established, funded by resources from Hanzo's legacy. This measure was proposed by Byakuya to win over hearts, straightforward and effective. Yahiko, however, did not believe Byakuya's intentions were solely to win hearts. Still, he couldn't oppose the establishment of the orphanage. Once it was built, Conan became its first director. Seeing the emaciated orphans before them, Nagato and Conan couldn't help but feel sorrowful. They recalled their own past and silently vowed that such tragedies must never happen again. However, Black Zetsu was troubled by this scene. If Nagato didn't fall into darkness, how could he execute the Eye of the Moon plan? Without the Rinnegan, it would be impossible to use the Outer Path's demonic statute to gather the tailed beasts. If it had been in the past, he would have already been figuring out how to turn Nagato to the dark side. Only after losing all beauty and hope can the seed of hatred be born, to burn the entire world. But with Byakuya, the restorer, here now, there's no need to worry about that. Byakuya will definitely lead the Akatsuki into war. He just needs to consider how to delay this process. After using secret techniques to record this scene as a video, Black Zetsu quietly left the orphanage. At this moment, Nagato seemed to sense something. He looked towards where Black Zetsu had left and frowned, saying, "Why do I feel like someone is spying on us?" "Spying on us?" Conan looked around, finding nothing unusual. She said, "Nagato, have you been working too hard at the construction site recently? Maybe you're tired and having illusions." Nagato shook his head. Despite using the Shinra Tensei to move bricks at the construction site, his sensory abilities had never failed. He was certain that someone was spying on him and Conan from the shadows. Seeing Nagato's serious expression, Conan quickly asked, "Could it be Byakuya? He often has a habit of appearing unexpectedly and using paper clones to oversee. I'm very familiar with Byakuya's chakra. I can say for sure it's not him. It could be Hidden Rain village shinobi who oppose Yahiko, or perhaps spies from other ninja villages." Nagato felt that something was seriously wrong with this situation, but he had no immediate solution. He could only shake his head and say, "Forget it. I'll go find Byakuya later and inform him." "We can only do that." Conan nodded as well. Although she hadn't sensed anything, she wasn't brave enough to let her guard down. After Akatsuki eliminated Hanzo as their enemy, they moved from the shadows to the forefront. They didn't know how many eyes were watching them in secret, so they had to be cautious. Meanwhile, as Nagato and Conan discussed chakra sensing, Black Zetsu had already arrived in the underground space. This time, Madara was not with Obito Hatake, but seated on a stone stool, quietly waiting for Black Zetsu's return. Upon sensing Black Zetsu's arrival, Madara suddenly opened his eyes and asked in a deep voice, "Black Zetsu, how are things on Nagato's side?" Chapter 89, Azura's Death and Birth. Lord Madara. Here's what happened. Taking a deep breath, Black Zetsu recounted everything that had transpired in recent days to Madara, including his interactions with Byakuya. However, he made slight modifications at critical points. When Madara heard that Akatsuki had caught Hanzo's attention, he wasn't particularly interested. In his view, it was inevitable that Akatsuki would attract Hanzo's attention sooner or later. Perhaps Hanzo had been idealistic and full of passion in his youth, but ideals changed over time. Someone once claimed to have founded a village for the sake of comrades. Yet they could still betray their most important comrades behind their backs in order to protect the village. Therefore, Hanzo was no longer the same as he once was. It all made perfect sense. And that little devil Byakuya dared to believe the enemy's words. If he got betrayed, it was his own fault. After experiencing such events, Nagato should understand the cruelty of the shinobi world. Next, it would be Nagato sinking for the sake of his comrades and using the Rinnegan to turn the tide. Madara thought confidently, but what Black Zetsu said next was completely different, causing a ripple in Madara's heart. Unable to hold back, he said, "Are you saying that Byakuya used your advice to deceive Hanzo and Denzo, ultimately gaining control of Hidden Rain village and reversing the unfavorable situation?" "That's exactly what happened." Black Zetsu nodded. After hearing this, Madara fell silent. He had thought he was only inferior to Byakuya in teaching abilities, but now he realized he was also lacking in strategy. Back then, he had managed to escape by feigning death with the help of Izanagi, successfully outlasting Hashirama. Although he regretted not defeating Hashirama himself, a win was still a win. Even now, if he were to wreak havoc on Hidden Lee village and Hidden Stones village, no one could stop him. The shinobi world was indeed formidable, but he wasn't at his peak right now. With a playful grin, White Zetsu on Black Zetsu's body said, "Lord Madara, we haven't disappointed you this time, have we? Now the Eye of the Moon plan has a new ally." "A new ally?" Madara snorted coldly. tacitly agreeing. Although he wanted Obito to execute the Eye of the Moon plan, having more allies wouldn't hurt. Besides, Byakuya also possessed Uzumaki bloodline, and transplanting cells from Hashirama would allow him to become a vessel for the Rinnegan. From this perspective, Black Zetsu had done well. He was truly a reflection of his will. However, the most important thing now was to make Obito feel the malice from the entire world, birthing eyes capable of executing the Eye of the Moon plan. At this moment, Black Zetsu glanced around and, not seeing Obito, asked in confusion, "Lord Madara, where did Obito go? Has the plan already begun?" Madara nodded lightly and said calmly, "Yes, the plan has already begun. I'm about to depart for the afterlife, but before I die, there are a few things I need to explain to you. First, after my death, you must monitor Obito's every move and assist him in weakening the 5 great shinobi nations. Collect the 9-tailed beasts. Second, prepare a suitable body for me. I intend to revive in my prime state. Third, at the right moment, inform Obito that his fate was my plot. Even if he hates me, he must complete the Eye of the Moon plan." "Yes, Lord Madara." After listening to Madara's instructions, Black Zetsu nodded solemnly. He desired the infinite Tsukimi more than anyone else, but whether or not to revive Madara in his prime was uncertain. Since obtaining Aja's chakra from Madara, and giving birth to the Rinnegan in that moment, Madara had lost his value. Black Zetsu also disliked Madara's commanding behavior. Finally, Madara glanced at Black Zetsu and decisively severed the nutrient tube. As life energy ceased to flow, he closed his eyes forever. The Indra who once overlooked the shinobi world ultimately died in the dark corner. Watching Madara's soul depart for the Pure Land, Black Zetsu looked towards the exit. Before long, his other pawn, Obito, would return. Near the coastline of the Land of Fire, a one-sided massacre was taking place. Wearing the white Zetsu battle armor, Obito, in the form of a demigod, was massacring the Anbu of Hidden Mist Village. Before the wood-style Mangekyo Sharingan, none of the Hidden Mist Village Anbu were a match. After losing most of their teammates, the remaining Hidden Mist Village Anbu lost their will to fight and began to flee in all directions. They didn't understand why they encountered such a monster when their mission was to escort the Three Tails Jinchuriki and unleash its rampage in the heart of Hidden Leaf Village. Moreover, hasn't the wood style disappeared for decades? Why does it appear in Uchiha now? Why didn't Hidden Leaf Village showcase such terrifying combat power earlier, choosing instead to wait until now? Could this be a conspiracy, a plot by Hidden Leaf Village to weaken Hidden Mist Village? Thinking this through, the Hidden Mist Village Anbu suddenly found the logic clear. Hidden Leaf Village deliberately feigned weakness to lure and eliminate the elite forces of Hidden Mist Village, similar to the previous incident with the 7 ninja swordsmen. How could an ordinary lower-level ninja possibly defeat 4 members of the 7 ninja swordsmen? Now another mysterious Uchiha had appeared, massacring dozens of Hidden Mist Village Anbu members. He had to survive to pass on this message to the 3rd Hokage. However, in the next moment, Obito appeared in front of the Hidden Mist Village Anbu Black Ops. After a wooden thorn was inserted into the body, the chakra-absorbing seeds of the wood style grew rapidly and became a towering tree in a few seconds. After killing all the enemies, Obito sat on the ground, breathing heavily. After restoring some chakra using the Byakuya armor, Obito arrived next to Obito and Rin Nohara, extending his fingers. Obito was only unconscious and still breathing. But Rin, pierced through the chest, had already turned into a cold corpse and couldn't die again. Obito forced himself to stay calm, but his tone still trembled. "Dobi, do you have a way to revive Rin? Should I kill Obito?" He killed Rin. Dobi, who was usually talkative, fell silent, then said, "We white Zetsu are not so easy to die, but humans are unpredictable. As for Obito, if you want to kill him quickly and then return. Otherwise, if Lord Madara finds out, he will punish us. It doesn't matter what kind of punishment I might have to face. The point is Rin is dead." Obito could no longer control his emotions and shouted loudly at Dobi, but Dobi did not respond further, just as he could not understand human emotions. Several minutes later, Obito picked up Rin's body and looked at Obito lying on the ground. "No matter what reason, I couldn't forgive your actions that killed Rin. Killing you would be too easy for you. You should carry this guilt and feel the pain." After that, Obito headed towards the direction of Madara. He still held a glimmer of hope in his heart, hoping that Madara could revive Rin. If old Madara was as strong as the god of Shinobi, he would surely find a way. Chapter 90, Obito and Black Zetsu. With Tobi's help, Obito quickly returned to the Land of Grass. Looking at the pitch-black underground passage ahead and feeling the cold body in his arms, Obito's heart was filled with anxiety. On one hand, he hoped that Madara could revive Rin. On the other hand, years of education and common sense told him that Rin was already dead and couldn't die again. Even the legendary Six Paths sage probably couldn't bring back the dead. Rin's death was also somewhat absurd, dying at Kakashi's hands. Kakashi, who had always claimed to protect Rin, along with Minato-sensei, the fastest in the ninja world, always seemed to arrive too late to rescue his disciples. He couldn't protect himself, let alone Rin. Obito kept complaining in his heart, blaming his friends, blaming his teachers, blaming this cruel world. And blaming himself deeply. If it weren't for him, Rin might have retired long ago and wouldn't need to continue dangerous missions. If he hadn't fantasized about becoming Hokage, he might have returned to the village long ago. Although he couldn't have the strength to protect Rin, he could have been Rin's scapegoat during missions. Now, even though he possessed strength surpassing a Jonin, and awakened the legendary Mangekyo Sharingan, time was running out, and the lost things could not be compensated for. After reaching the end of the passage, Obito raised his head and pushed open the thick stone wall. "Old man Madara, I ran out and came back again. This time I want to ask you for a favor." Obito calmed his mood on one hand and pondered his words carefully, his tone full of pleading. But when Obito walked into the underground space, he saw Madara sitting on a stone chair, asleep. Old man Madara? Obito felt something was wrong. Although Madara often slept, today Obito had clearly gone out himself. Madara would at least mock him. How could he sleep peacefully? Just as Obito was about to step forward to wake Madara, Black Zetsu emerged from the underground and said emotionlessly, "Obito, just as you left, Lord Madara has already died." "Madara is dead?" Obito felt as if he had been struck by lightning, muttering to himself, "This is impossible. Isn't he the self-proclaimed Ashura of the ninja world, the strongest Uchiha in legend? How could he die like this? Lord Madara is dead." Black Zetsu stared expressionlessly at Obito. Taking a step forward, Obito confirmed that Madara's power had indeed cooled, and his heart had stopped beating halfway. To him, Madara was not only the hope of saving Rin, but also a senior Uchiha he had been with for several months, teaching him how to become a strong ninja. Activating his Sharingan, Obito stared firmly at Black Zetsu, who was familiar yet strange before him, and asked with a vigilant tone, "Who killed Madara? Was it you or other ninja outside? Who are you exactly? Tell me quickly." Facing Obito's questioning, Black Zetsu remained expressionless and calmly explained, "I am the will created by Lord Madara, born to assist you in achieving the Eye of the Moon plan." As for how Lord Madara died? His life had reached its end long ago. For years, he had been relying on the Outer Path's reincarnation jutsu to prolong his life. After grooming a suitable successor, he chose death voluntarily. Madara chose death voluntarily. Obito frowned, sensing that something was amiss. While Madara had always spoken to him about the beauty of the Eye of the Moon plan, he had never disclosed its specific details. Now that Madara was dead, why continue with the Eye of the Moon plan? Thinking this through, Obito turned to Black Zetsu and asked, "What exactly is the Eye of the Moon plan meant to accomplish?" Black Zetsu, who had been waiting for this question, immediately took over and explained, "The Eye of the Moon plan is a massive Ganjutsu that covers the entire ninja world. To achieve it, one must capture the nine-tailed beasts to use as the Outer Path's reincarnation jutsu's power source." Madara's plan was to gather the nine-tailed beasts first, then use the Outer Path's reincarnation jutsu and the power of the Rinnegan to resurrect himself in his prime, allowing you to then execute the Eye of the Moon plan together. As Obito listened with a furrowed brow, he quickly noticed the keywords Rinnegan and resurrection. Hope surged within him. There truly existed a jutsu to resurrect the dead. If that were the case, did Rin also have a chance to be revived? Black Zetsu noticed Obito's expression and nodded, saying, "Obito, you want to resurrect the girl next to you, right? The Rinnegan does indeed possess the ability to revive the dead. However, to wield this power, you must gather the strength of the tailed beasts. If you strive to achieve the Eye of the Moon plan, when you resurrect Madara, there's no reason you can't revive another ninja as well. But this plan is even more difficult than you imagine. Are you prepared?" Obito glanced at Rin beside him, then at Madara not far away, and nodded firmly. Having lost hope in life, he had found a new purpose, to strive to revive his beloved. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Wasn't the timing of Madara's and Rin's deaths too coincidental? Recalling his experiences with Madara these days, it seemed Madara had always wanted to groom him as his successor. Could Rin's death be related to Madara? Or was all of this caused by the mysterious little black creature before him? In the next moment, Obito pushed aside these tangled thoughts. Madara had intended to groom him for Hokage, he couldn't have harmed him. Even if it was Madara's conspiracy, he had no way to take revenge. Madara was dead, Rin was dead, and now he was alone. The once colorful world had returned to black and white. Taking a deep breath, Obito instructed Tobi to cover his face and turn to Black Zetsu, asking, "What should we do next with Madara's will? Should we directly take the Rinnegan and then gather the tailed beasts? Just call me Black Zetsu. After Madara's death, you are the new Madara Uchiha." As Black Zetsu corrected Obito's address, he offered his advice, "However, let's hold off on using the Rinnegan for now. The Rinnegan is not something you can handle at this moment, and you don't have the capability to gather the 9-tailed beasts on your own. Even if you manage to capture 1 or 2 tailed beasts by chance, you won't be able to secure the crucial 8 tails and 9 tails. Kurama, the 9 tails Jinchuriki is Kushina, a jonin of Hidden Leaf Village. Her husband is your teacher, Minato Namikaze. I suggest you wait until Kushina passes away before making a move. Time is on our side. You also need to adapt to Tobi and the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan." Upon hearing Kushina's name, Obito's eyes flickered with a hint of struggle, but he quickly hardened his resolve, as if he had already made a certain decision. Chapter 91, Denzo's Mockery at the border of the Land of Rain. After leading his remnants out of the Land of Rain, Denzo lingered at the border for several days. On one hand, he was waiting for the outcome of the internal conflict in the Land of Rain. On the other hand, he was looking for any opportunities to intervene. What disappointed Denzo was that the once demigod Hanzo of the Salamander seemed truly aged. Not only did he lose the negotiations to the Akatsuki, but even his subordinates couldn't make much of a stir, allowing Hidden Rain Village to smoothly complete the power transition. This might be good news for Jiraiya. But for him and Hidden Leaf Village, it was terrible news. The Akatsuki would certainly not be satisfied with the Land of Rain. Soon they would undoubtedly expand outward, encroaching on Hidden Leaf Village's interests and threatening the safety of the Land of Fire. However, this was not the time to worry about that. Once Hidden Rain Village stabilized, they would surely trace back to find him as the mastermind behind the scenes, putting him in grave danger. After all, his strength was not on par with Hanzo's. If the Akatsuki could kill Hanzo, they could kill him too. It was best to pack up and return to the safety of the rear, replenishing the personnel lost en route during this mission. At that moment, Ryuma Aburame rushed into the secret room, holding a scroll in his hand. Already in a foul mood, Denzo glared at the flustered Ryuma and scolded, "As a jonin, how can you be so careless? The situation is quite urgent." Ryuma explained cautiously. "Don't panic in the face of problems. If the sky falls, this old man and Saratobi will hold it up. Hidden Leaf Village will always have our support." After lecturing his subordinate, Denzo asked, "Now then, Ryuma, what's the matter?" Ryuma took a deep breath and quickly said, "Lord Denzo, it's a letter from Byakuya. It seems he's trying to contact us through a ninja hawk." "Byakuya?" Denzo's face darkened as he realized he had forgotten about the ninja hawk. He cautiously glanced out the window, ready to use the reverse summoning technique at any moment. His summoning beast, Dream Manta, happened to have the ability and chakra to perform the reverse summoning technique. Seeing Denzo's thoughts, Ryuma reminded, "Lord Denzo, Byakuya didn't follow us, so you should check what's written in the letter." Fortunately, he didn't follow Denzo and the team during their retreat. Denzo breathed a sigh of relief but showed a look of regret as if he had missed an opportunity. Carefully opening the letter, the moment it was unfolded, the explosive tag inside flashed, triggering an explosion. Denzo and Ryuma quickly used chakra to defend themselves, but the nearby desk was blown to pieces. Picking up the intact letter from the ground, Denzo, his face covered in soot, opened it and read it. After finishing, his expression turned extremely complex. It wasn't a letter of accountability, but a letter of thanks. Byakuya thanked Denzo for the supplies and advanced ninjutsu he had sent, as well as for his assistance on his path to seizing power. He claimed that without Denzo, he would not have been able to become the current leader of the Akatsuki. Byakuya even shared his experience of the takeover in the letter. However, Byakuya's target was not Yahiko and the others, but Hanzo of Hidden Rain Village. At the end of the letter, Byakuya asked when Denzo would become the Hokage of Hidden Leaf Village, and if possible, he wanted to invite Denzo to Hidden Rain Village to exchange experiences. Seeing the silent Denzo, Ryuma was about to speak but was frightened into silence by Denzo's glare, taking a step back. Denzo took a deep breath and read the letter again. Byakuya's letter was ostensibly one of thanks, but in reality, it was a blatant mockery, delivering a critical blow. From Byakuya's address, it was clear he had long known Denzo's identity and had guessed his dream of becoming Hokage, using it to taunt him. But what pained Denzo the most was Byakuya's success. Regardless of who the current leader of Hidden Rain Village was, Byakuya's plan clearly won the lottery. He had risen from a high-ranking member of the Akatsuki to its leader and had even replaced Hanzo as the ruler of Hidden Rain Village. Denzo, on the other hand, was a failure. Not only had this operation failed, But his dream of becoming Hokage was also a distant one. The only good news was that Byakuya seemed to be a ninja who only cared about interests, just like himself. Having lost Hanzo as a collaborator, there might still be opportunities for future cooperation with Byakuya. As for not taking this opportunity to hunt him down, it was simple. Byakuya and Yahiko shared most of their interests, but their minor interests clashed. With the loss of a potential enemy and threat, Byakuya also lost his usefulness. A mature ninja would cultivate enemies to justify having a group of subordinates, otherwise, they would have no voice in high-level meetings. Thinking this, Denzo took out a blank scroll and began to craft a hypocritical reply. After finishing the letter, Denzo handed it to Ryuma, instructing calmly, "Have the ninja hawk deliver this letter to Byakuya." Ryuma didn't delay and immediately left the secret room. He had just witnessed the changes in Denzo's expression firsthand. Although he didn't fully understand it, he was really stunned. Perhaps this was the kind of interaction that occurred between the major figures in the ninja villages. After Ryuma left, a few more root ninjas came to report. This time, the information was about the eastern coast of the Land of Fire. In the forest near the coast, a ninja had discovered an unconscious Kakashi and the surrounding bodies of dead Mistanbu. The number of over 30 Mistanbu made Denzo frown. Dealing with that many Mistanbu was no easy task, it required strength comparable to that of Hokage. There weren't many ninjas in Hidden Leaf Village who could achieve this. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sannin, Minato Namikaze, and then there was him. If Minato Namikaze had handled it, it would be understandable, but if Kakashi had dealt with it, Denzo wasn't brave enough to continue that line of thought. Although Kakashi's father possessed such ability, Kakashi himself was not yet 15. Could there really be such a strong young prodigy in the ninja world? Denzo suddenly thought of Byakuya, Nagato, and others, and his mood turned bitter. The ninja world not only had young prodigies but also many of them. They weren't merely geniuses, they were young powerhouses. After all, only ninjas who hadn't yet fully grown were considered geniuses, and Byakuya could already stand alone. Pulling back his increasingly scattered thoughts, Denzo began to worry again about the position of Hokage. His own hope of becoming Hokage seemed dim, and Orochimaru's chances also seemed very slim, considering Orochimaru's disciples were not as outstanding as Minato's. Perhaps accelerating the wood style project was the only solution. Only by possessing Lord Hashirama's bloodline limit could he prove that he was more suitable to become Hokage than anyone else. Only then could he, as Hokage, could lead Hidden Leaf Village to rule the world. Chapter 92, Hidden Leaf Village. After sending the reply, Denzo was eager to return to Hidden Leaf Village to proceed with the next phase of the wood style experiments. Only by cultivating a ninja with the wood style bloodline limit could he and Orochimaru win the battle to become the fourth Hokage and enjoy true freedom within the village. Taking a few days to travel, Denzo returned to his root base, only to find Anbu directly under the third Hokage waiting at the entrance. As soon as Denzo returned, the Anbu ninja stepped forward respectfully. "Lord Denzo, the Hokage has requested your presence at the Hokage's office." Despite his annoyance, Denzo followed them. He was curious to see what Sarutobi wanted. Arriving at the Hokage's office, Denzo saw the third Hokage at work desk. The Hokage looked up, scrutinizing his long-absent subordinate and part-time friend with sharp eyes. Unlike the elderly third Hokage of 10 years later, this Hokage was in his early 50s. Though his physical prowess had waned slightly from its peak, his extensive experience more than compensated for any physical decline, making him still one of the top ninjas in the world. After a moment of contemplation, the third Hokage looked at Denzo. "Denzo, during your absence, the situation in the ninja world has changed significantly. Currently, aside from Hidden Clouds Village's unclear stance, Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Stones Village have both expressed a desire for peace talks. The war is about to end. And so, I plan to hold a Jonin meeting in a month to elect the fourth Hokage. What does the Hokage election have to do with me? The last time I nominated myself, only you, Koharu, and Hamura vetoed it, didn't you?" Denzo scoffed and added, "And I don't believe someone as young as Minato Namikaze can manage the village well. Denzo, if we, the older generation, keep running for Hokage, it will make us a laughingstock. It's time to let the younger ones take the lead." The third Hokage chuckled. He knew Denzo had always wanted to be Hokage, but he could not allow it, not even letting Denzo have a chance to run. One reason was that Denzo had been in the shadows for too long, tainted by too much darkness. Another was that both he and Denzo were getting old, and even he had thoughts of retirement. A peer like Denzo was better suited as an advisor elder, contributing to the village from that position. Creating another ninja willing to fall into the darkness would not be easy. He also knew Denzo supported Orochimaru's bid for the fourth Hokage, even considering fraudulent means. However, he doubted Orochimaru could defeat Minato no Mikaze. Minato's achievements in this ninja war were too brilliant, overshadowing even the Hokage himself. After discussing the fourth Hokage, the third Hokage's expression turned serious. He took a scroll from his drawer. "Alright, aside from informing you about the upcoming Hokage election, there's another task I need you for. It's a request for help from the daimyo of the Land of Wind. They need us to deal with rogue ninjas. I didn't want to trouble you at this time, but..." The third Hokage hesitated, but Denzo already understood and snatched the scroll, glancing at it briefly. The task was issued by the daimyo of the Land of Wind, targeting rogue ninjas in Wind City. On the surface, the mission was to target rogue ninjas, but in reality, it was to eliminate the spies placed by Hidden Sand Village in Wind City to monitor the daimyo. This was a joint mission between Hidden Leaf Village and the daimyo of the Land of Wind to weaken their ally. Such tasks could not be carried out by ordinary jonin, and the jonin capable of completing them valued their reputation too much. Only a ninja willing to dwell in the shadows, like Denzo, would be willing to execute such missions, and he had performed countless similar tasks over the years. However, the third Hokage's real intention was not just to have him execute this mission. It was a warning to Denzo not to meddle in the Hokage election, an excuse to send him away from the village during this critical time. The Hokage's strategy was indeed malicious. After some contemplation, Denzo ultimately accepted the mission. He glanced at the Hokage's chair before leaving the office. Years ago, he had been just a step away from becoming Hokage, and years later, it was still the same. He had been waiting for this position for decades. But now, at the crucial moment of the fourth Hokage election, Sarutobi had sent him away. If he couldn't become Hokage through the normal election process, could he follow Byakuya's example and use other means to achieve his goal? Thinking about this made Denzo uneasy, but he suppressed his thoughts. Even though he had lost most of his subordinates, even at the height of his power, his forces were far inferior to the Anbu. Moreover, he had no allies other than Orochimaru. The odds were too low. It was better to stay in the shadows, surviving as a part of Root. After dealing with Denzo, the third Hokage went to the rooftop, overlooking most of Hidden Leaf Village from there. Gazing at the peaceful village, the third Hokage felt a strong sense of pride. Although the village had suffered significant losses due to his failed decisions in the war, losing many young and strong jonin, many young ninjas had also gained experience and grown. Among them, his favorites were Minato no Mikaze and Kakashi Hatake, the master and disciple. Minato had grown into one of the top ninjas in the world, capable of assuming the responsibilities of Hokage, while Kakashi had shown the ability to stand alone. With proper guidance, he could become another White Fang of Hidden Leaf Village. However, even though peace was imminent, there were still undercurrents in the shadows. Denzo, who wanted to become Hokage, the Uchiha clan eyeing the Hokage position, and the powerful clans like the Hyuga that were difficult to control, all these had to be dealt with slowly. The Hokage needed to weaken the clans and strengthen the power and influence of the Hokage's office. It was his way of securing the position of Hokage and maintaining the village's stability, though he wondered if Minato no Mikaze could manage it. If Minato couldn't handle it. The third Hokage fell into deep thought, contemplating his relationship with the fourth Hokage after his retirement. However, even the third Hokage didn't notice that his reflective moment on the rooftop was being observed by Obito and Black Zetsu. After Black Zetsu persuaded Obito to become Madara's successor, they came to Hidden Leaf Village together. On one hand, Obito wanted to visit his former friends and retrieve his own eye. On the other hand, they were scouting to see if there was an opportunity to weaken Hidden Leaf Village and obtain a portion of the Nine-Tails chakra. Before the third Hokage's gaze could sweep over their location, Obito and Black Zetsu used Kamyu to disappear. Standing in the Kamyu dimension, Black Zetsu said to Obito, "Stop thinking about it. Hidden Leaf Village will never give you the Nine-Tails chakra. It's better to take Kakashi's Sharingan and complete your pair of Mangekyo as soon as possible." Obito looked around the distorted space of Kamyu, his eyes narrowing with determination. "I know. But there's more to do before we can proceed. Hidden Leaf Village's defenses are strong, and we need to weaken them strategically." Black Zetsu nodded, a sinister smile forming. "Exactly. The Nine-Tails chakra is crucial, but we must bide our time and strike when Hidden Leaf Village is vulnerable." Obito clenched his fist, his thoughts drifting back to his former friends in Hidden Leaf Village. "First, we need to ensure our plans align with Madara's vision. Once we have the Mangekyo, we can move forward more aggressively." Black Zetsu's eyes gleamed with malevolence. "Patience and precision. That's the key. For now, let's focus on destabilizing Hidden Leaf Village from the shadows." As they strategized in the Kamyu dimension, the third Hokage continued his musings on the rooftop, unaware of the looming threats and intricate plots that would soon engulf Hidden Leaf Village. The delicate balance of power within the village, the ambitions of Denzo, and the external threats posed by rogue ninjas and rival villages would all converge, testing the resilience and unity of the Hidden Leaf Village. Back in Hidden Leaf Village, the preparations for the 4th Hokage election were underway. The village was bustling with anticipation, unaware of the dark clouds gathering on the horizon. Minato Namikaze, with his growing reputation and unparalleled skills, was seen as the beacon of hope, but the shadows of doubt and uncertainty lingered. Chapter 93, Obito's competitive nature. Obito ignored Black Zetsu and used Kamyu to move towards Kakashi's home. Although Black Zetsu claimed to be the will of Madara Uchiha, Obito saw him as nothing more than a poor imitation, unworthy of giving him orders. However, Black Zetsu was right about one thing: Obito didn't have the power to confront the village yet, not even with a complete Sharingan, as his Sharingan was currently with Kakashi. Only by retrieving his eye from Kakashi would Obito's abilities be complete. A few minutes later, Obito arrived at Kakashi's house. Kakashi was resting on a tatami mat, his face showing signs of mental exhaustion and his eyes filled with despondency. Seeing this, Obito felt a sense of satisfaction. Kakashi, this useless guy, didn't become stronger even with his eye. A failure who couldn't even protect Rin deserved to live in pain for the rest of his life. Obito, take back your eye quickly. Black Zetsu urged in his ear. Although annoyed with Black Zetsu, Obito silently approached Kakashi. If he could retrieve his eye, his power would increase significantly. But just as Obito was about to reach Kakashi, Kakashi suddenly murmured in his sleep, "Obito, I'm sorry. I couldn't protect Rin, couldn't keep our promise." Hearing this, Obito froze behind Kakashi. Then, he used the teleportation jutsu to disappear from the spot, crouching in a nearby thicket, lost in thought. "Obito, why didn't you take your eye?" Black Zetsu asked, displeased. "Don't try to order me around." Obito snapped, glaring at Black Zetsu. Then he found an excuse and said, "Even without my eye, I can still gather the tailed beasts and bring Rin back to life." Black Zetsu saw through Obito's thoughts but didn't expose him. Obito clearly didn't want to harm Kakashi, yet he kept up a facade, showing his immaturity. He still had a long way to go before becoming a competent mastermind. In comparison, White Knight, whom Black Zetsu had chosen, never hesitated and worked diligently towards world domination, to the point where Black Zetsu had to stop him from overworking. Obito, on the other hand, was indecisive and weak-willed. Apart from those eyes, he was nothing. After visiting Kakashi, Obito, with Black Zetsu, went to the Uchiha clan compound and then to the Hero Memorial. He lingered in front of Rin's gravestone for a long time. Rin's grave didn't hold her body, but Obito still looked at it carefully. His thoughts began to drift, imagining a future where Rin was revived, and they fell in love, married, and had children. But a chilling wind brought him back to reality, reminding him of Rin's death. Through posthumous investigations, he knew that Rin hadn't died at the hands of the Mist Ninjas. The Mist had sealed the 3 tails in her, intending to use her as a weapon against Hidden Leaf Village. Before the weapon could be activated, the Mist had protected Rin. The ones who had tried to kill Rin were Kakashi and Rin herself. Rin had chosen to die by Kakashi's hand, unwilling to let herself be used to harm the village. Kakashi also hadn't wanted to kill Rin, he had done it to protect the village and his comrades. Both Kakashi and Rin had acted for the village, but the village couldn't protect them, leaving only a cold name on the memorial stone. What was the cause of all this? What was the solution? If he really brought Rin back, how would she see him? Could she accept his actions? After all, Rin's dream was world peace, and reviving her would certainly ignite war. Obito couldn't imagine Rin coldly questioning his actions after being revived. What if she chose to end her life again? Was the fault with his powerless self or with this world? After much contemplation, Obito concluded that the fault lay with this cruel and twisted world. Why do ninjas start wars? Why did he lose his parents at such a young age, leaving him with no relatives? Why were he and Rin forced to go to the battlefield at the tender age of 9, compelled to become competent ninjas? If they lived in a perfect world, Rin wouldn't have chosen to take her own life and would have lived on happily. But how could one create such a perfect world? Obito thought of the Eye of the Moon plan. The Rinnegan could bring Rin back to life, but the Eye of the Moon plan could create a world without conflict. At that moment, Obito seemed to find a completely different path. When night fell, Obito and Black Zetsu bypassed the barriers and left Hidden Leaf Village. With his face hidden behind a mask, Obito's expression was unreadable, but his steps were noticeably heavier. His thoughts had changed. Before resurrecting Rin and Madara, he planned to implement the infinite Tsukaimi, creating a world without conflict. But his pride prevented him from discussing this with Black Zetsu, so he remained silent. Seeing Obito's lack of resolve, Black Zetsu said coldly, Since you can't bring yourself to take down Kakashi, go join the Akatsuki. I have a capable subordinate there. The Akatsuki? Obito seemed to recognize the name and then said, "You mean the organization where Nagato is? You have someone placed there? Who? You should have met him." "Yes, his name is Byakuya, the new leader of the Akatsuki." "Byakuya? Byakuya is your subordinate?" Obito was surprised. He was familiar with the name and had met Byakuya a few times. The first time they met, Byakuya had warned him not to step on an explosive tag. The second time, Byakuya had helped him rescue Rin, albeit with a sharp tongue, but Obito had thought him to be a decent person. Now Black Zetsu was telling him that Byakuya was also Madara's subordinate. After a pause, Obito asked Black Zetsu, "Why did Byakuya become your subordinate? Does he also want to resurrect someone important?" Black Zetsu shook his head. "His dream is bigger than yours, but it's also easier. He's a descendant of the Uzumaki clan and wants to rebuild the land of whirlpools, seeking revenge on the villages that once harmed it. So, it's about restoring his country?" Obito scoffed internally and then said, "But you're suggesting I join him rather than take over the Akatsuki myself? Isn't the position of leader supposed to go to the strongest?" In the past, he might not have been a match for Byakuya, but no matter how strong Byakuya was, he could at most be as strong as Kakashi. After undergoing intense training with Madara Uchiha and awakening the legendary Mangekyo Sharingan, Obito was confident that Byakuya was no match for him. Black Zetsu observed Obito's competitive spirit and sighed inwardly before reminding him, "Obito, don't underestimate Byakuya. He, along with Nagato and the others, defeated the demigod Hanzo of the Salamander and now rules Hidden Rain Village." "I know." Obito nodded. "But I am Madara's true successor." Chapter 94, Byakuya and Obito. Obito's arrogance made Black Zetsu furrow his brow involuntarily. However, what the kid said was true, Byakuya was indeed not Obito's match. The combination of wood style and Mangekyo Sharingan elevated Obito's strength significantly. Coupled with his mysterious and unpredictable kami, his power had reached the level of a Kage. This was also one of the reasons why Madara Uchiha chose Obito as his successor. For Uchiha Shinobi, once they awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, it was natural to ascend to the level of Kage, even if Obito a few months ago was not as strong as an average jounin. However, for a task that required considerable time to execute, temporary strength was not the most critical factor. Although Byakuya didn't possess the Mangekyo Sharingan, he could harness Nagato's power. After spending 2 days traveling from Hidden Leaf Village, Obito and Black Zetsu arrived in the Land of Rain. The Land of Rain was constantly rainy, with a pervasive musty smell in the air. Obito glanced at Black Zetsu beside him. Clearly, the environment here couldn't compare to the Fire Country. Could the ninja village born here really realize the infinite Tsukimi plan? Obito was skeptical. However, as the two ventured deeper into the heart of the Land of Rain, the road suddenly widened, and ahead, a group of ninjas was even building bridges and repairing roads. The ninjas' method of road repair was simple. They first used earth style to swiftly pave the ground, followed by fire style to quickly solidify it. From the perspective of ninjutsu principles, it wasn't complicated, but seeing ninjas actively engaged in road construction impressed Obito. In Hidden Leaf Village, only genin would undertake such basic ninjutsu tasks. The ninjas here should have the strength equivalent to Chunin or above. Witnessing this scene, Obito's expectations for Hidden Rain Village grew. Before long, Obito and Black Zetsu arrived at the center of Hidden Rain Village Tower. Using Kamyu to pass through the barrier, they entered the interior of the village. Although Hidden Rain Village still couldn't rival Hidden Leaf Village, it had surpassed most ninja villages in the world. Obito turned to Black Zetsu and asked, "Black Zetsu, where is Byakuya?" Instead of answering the question, Black Zetsu led Obito to the heart of Hidden Rain Village, the Hidden Rain Village Tower. They waited patiently nearby. After some time, a teenager dressed in a hurry of flames burst out of the Hidden Rain Village Tower, looking furious, and rushed towards the outskirts of the village. Obito recognized the identity of the teenager. It was none other than Byakuya, whom he was looking for. But why was Byakuya leaving Hidden Rain Village Tower in anger? Did the upper echelons of Hidden Rain Village not get along? Seemingly understanding Obito's thoughts, Black Zetsu hurriedly explained, "Byakuya and Yahiko have disagreements on certain principles, so they often argue." Thinking for a moment, Obito recalled Kakashi, who had different beliefs from his own. Obito immediately shook his head. That worthless guy wasn't worth his concern at all. Instead of overthinking, it was better to go and show Byakuya who was in charge. With that thought, a vortex appeared next to Obito, and he swiftly chased after Byakuya in the direction he had departed. Walking along the main street of Hidden Rain Village, Byakuya smiled and greeted the villagers, recalling the discussions from the meeting just now. His outward fury was all in act. Inside, he was calm as a capybara in onsen. During the recent Hidden Rain Village meeting, he and Yahiko were discussing the village's future development. They had no disagreements about whether the Land of Rain should open its markets or remain isolationist. Both chose to open the markets. The reasons were straightforward. While isolationism could protect the Land of Rain, it was limited in scope. The country's territory was too small to develop chakra industries or have sufficient market demand to absorb production capacity. Opening the markets was necessary to convert technology into economic and military advantages. Secondly, in terms of diplomacy, Yahiko advocated for peaceful interactions with the 5 great nations and invited foreign ninja for mutual exchanges, which also posed no significant issue. However, they had a significant dispute regarding military affairs. Yahiko believed that maintaining the current number of ninja in Hidden Rain Village was sufficient, whereas Byakuya proposed expanding the military. Byakuya suggested expanding Hidden Rain Village's ninja forces to 5,000, while the Akatsuki organization covertly recruited elite members to conduct secret operations in various countries. As a result, the two had a heated argument and exchanged accusations. Leaving the core area of Hidden Rain Village and arriving at the Akatsuki base, Byakuya suddenly glanced backward and said coldly, "Come out. Stop following me." Obito emerged from the vortex that had been trailing behind Byakuya, looking intrigued as he fixed his gaze on Byakuya. He thought Byakuya hadn't noticed, but it turned out Byakuya's sensory abilities were even stronger than he had imagined, which surprised him slightly. However, this didn't stop him from asserting his dominance over Byakuya. Approaching Byakuya step by step, Obito, wearing a tiger-striped mask, seemed eerie like a ghost, moving without making a sound. Once he was close enough to Byakuya, Obito extended his palm, and sharp wooden spikes cut through the air. Byakuya leaned slightly to the side, easily evading the wood spike technique, and in one smooth motion, he hurled a kunai. The kunai pierced through Obito's body and struck a tree behind him. Observing this, Byakuya narrowed his eyes slightly. With his tiger-striped mask and the Mangekyo Sharingan combined with wood style, he didn't need to think twice to deduce that the attacker was indeed Obito Uchiha. Only Obito liked to conceal his identity. Since Obito enjoyed hiding his identity, Byakuya decided to indulge him in a little play. In addition, he wanted to see how much progress Obito had made since acquiring the Mangekyo Sharingan half a year ago and whether he was qualified to join the Akatsuki organization. With that thought in mind, Byakuya blurred and reappeared behind Obito in the next moment, swinging his short sword to strike. Against intangibility, the attack undoubtedly failed. Byakuya's face showed a hint of surprise, then he turned serious and said, "Who are you exactly? What kind of strange ability is this?" Hearing this, Obito felt satisfied. Closing the distance quickly, Obito immediately dispelled his intangibility and reached out to grab Byakuya, intending to end this skirmish. However, the moment Obito dispelled his intangibility, the Byakuya in front of him transformed into a paper clone, triggering a small-scale explosion. In the flickering flames, Obito struggled to re-engage his intangibility, narrowly avoiding a fatal blow. As the smoke cleared, Obito, looking worse for wear, was about to continue his attack when Byakuya lowered his short sword and frowned, gazing at the ground. "Black Zetsu, your new recruit doesn't seem that impressive. Attacking me as the leader is one thing, but failing to see through a simple paper clone? It's a bit unreliable to consider him joining our plans." Hearing this, Black Zetsu emerged from the ground and said, "Byakuya, not everyone is like you. Madara has been doing quite well. His ability with the Kami is very helpful for our future plans. He could be a valuable asset to you in the future." Chapter 95, Tsukimi Plan. Black Zetsu-senpai is making a valid point. Byakuya nodded and continued, "It's true that the organization currently lacks someone who can handle errands. The Kami ability is very convenient. But what's the deal with Madara? Is that a title or a name? If I remember correctly, Madara Uchiha died decades ago, right?" Upon hearing Byakuya deny that he was Madara, Obito's mood soured. In a low voice, he said, "I am indeed Madara Uchiha." Byakuya completely ignored Obito and turned to Black Zetsu beside him. "Black Zetsu-senpai, is he really Madara Uchiha? Is Madara's strength really this weak? I feel like his strength isn't even on par with Senju Hashirama." Black Zetsu looked somewhat embarrassed and could only explain reluctantly, "He is Lord Madara's successor, inheriting Lord Madara's title." Byakuya nodded solemnly and said seriously, "So he only inherited Madara's title? No wonder his strength is so weak, there's absolutely no sense of oppression." Listening to the conversation between Black Zetsu and Byakuya, Obito's face beneath his mask darkened. Clearly, This was supposed to be the return of a strong figure, yet he was completely disregarded by Black Zetsu and Byakuya. And what exactly was Byakuya's deal? Although he didn't seem threatening on the surface, he had nearly inflicted serious injury just now. While this surprise attack hadn't decided life or death, he had undeniably lost to Byakuya. This made Obito doubt whether the past 6 months of training had been in vain. He couldn't defeat Byakuya before, and apparently still couldn't now. At this moment, Byakuya finished his conversation with Black Zetsu and walked towards Obito's position. "What's your name?" "You remind me of someone I knew named Obito, also an Uchiha," Byakuya said. Upon hearing the name Obito's expression changed. His voice turned cold as he replied, "I don't know anyone named Obito. But yes, I am indeed Uchiha, and the title of Madara is just a name I use casually with outsiders. You can call me the Masked Man." "Alright, Masked Man." Byakuya acquiesced easily and continued, "But really, you don't know Obito? He may not be the brightest, but he's a good person. I wonder how he's doing now. Don't keep mentioning Obito in front of me. It sounds like we're familiar." Obito retorted coldly in his heart. Obito then continued, "Don't compare me to the Uchiha of Hidden Leaf Village. They're just a bunch of poor souls fantasizing about becoming Hokage." After a brief pause, Obito spoke with a serious expression, "Byakuya, I'm quite satisfied with the test just now. You qualify to become a member of our organization and work together towards our common goals." Byakuya's expression also turned serious as he asked, "May I ask, what is the name of our organization? What are the plans of our organization? What do we aim to achieve in 3 years, and in 5? Obito hesitated and stumbled, unable to provide an answer. It seemed he truly didn't know the name of his and Black Zetsu's organization, nor did he have a clear vision of future plans. Seeing this, a faint smile crept onto Black Zetsu's lips. When he first met Byakuya, he was also puzzled by Byakuya's eloquence. Somehow, he ended up joining the Akatsuki organization under Byakuya, becoming one of Byakuya's subordinates. If Black Zetsu couldn't do it, Obito surely couldn't either. Seeing Obito unable to answer the questions, Byakuya sighed lightly and said, "Since you, like Black Zetsu-senpai, don't know how to rule the world, why don't you join my Akatsuki organization? With your strength, you could barely become a peripheral member of Akatsuki." "A peripheral member?" Obito exclaimed incredulously, unable to accept this treatment. He had come here to replace Byakuya and become the leader of Akatsuki. Instead, Byakuya didn't even grant him the status of a full member, only a peripheral one. Unable to accept this, Obito immediately used Kamyu and left the Akatsuki base. Watching the swirling vortex disappear with Obito, Byakuya silently remarked on Obito's weak mental endurance. He hadn't even asked about Rin Nohara's situation, and this kid had already run away. Originally, he wanted to ask Rin if she had married Kakashi yet and perhaps send some gifts or the like. Mach is a menace. Gathering his thoughts, Byakuya looked at Black Zetsu beside him, furrowing his brow as he said, "Black Zetsu-senpai, now that the outsider has left, we can speak frankly. Who exactly is the Masked Man? Why does he claim to be Madara Uchiha, and why does he seem less than respectful towards you? What's the whole story behind this?" Black Zetsu sighed inwardly and then said, "He's an orphan picked up by Madara Uchiha, now Madara's successor. Madara Uchiha is the initiator of the Eye of the Moon project, and I was once one of Lord Madara's subordinates." "I see." Byakuya suddenly understood, then continued, "But this guy is using Lord Madara's influence to harass you, Black Zetsu-senpai. I can't tolerate that." At this point, Byakuya suddenly remembered something and asked, "By the way, what is the Eye of the Moon plan?" Caught off guard by the question, Black Zetsu hesitated briefly and cautiously explained, "The Eye of the Moon plan, in full, is a Ganjutsu of such scale that it puts the entire shinobi world under an illusion to achieve peace." "I see." Byakuya nodded thoughtfully, "Such a Ganjutsu is indeed powerful. Once everyone is trapped in the illusion, dealing with all resistors would mean ruling the world. But casting such a ninjutsu must be complex. Extremely difficult. First, one needs to gather the 9-tailed beasts and seal them using the Rinnegan into the Jido statue. After reviving the 10 tails, only then can the infinite Tsukahime be cast." Since he couldn't deceive Byakuya any longer, Black Zetsu decided to reveal the entire plan of the infinite Tsukahime. After pondering for a moment, Byakuya found a loophole and remarked, "Nagato's Rinnegan indeed seems to possess these abilities. However, this Eye of the Moon plan doesn't seem very useful. Before gathering the 9-tailed beasts, we would have to subdue the 5 great shinobi nations. Achieving that would already grant us the ability to rule the world." Black Zetsu became increasingly tensed. It seemed Byakuya had discovered the flaws in his words. Continuing, Byakuya said, "However, The judo statue would serve as an excellent chakra source, capable of intimidating the 5 great nations with its power and forcing them to maintain peace. Black Zetsu-senpai, you're really something. This deceitful plan of the infinite Tsukuyomi, fooling Madara and the masked man, claiming that putting all humans under an illusion would maintain peace, only fools would believe such a thing. After listening to Byakuya's analysis, Black Zetsu was sweating profusely. Byakuya almost suspected him, but fortunately, Byakuya concluded that the Eye of the Moon plan was a deception aimed at Madara and Obito, all to create the Ten Tails and dominate the shinobi world. Chapter 96, Conflicts Among the 5 Great Ninja Villages. After teasing Black Zetsu with words, Byakuya took out a scroll from his pouch. The scroll documented the future development plans of the Akatsuki. Ever since he formally became the leader of the Akatsuki, Byakuya had been devising plans to expand and strengthen the organization. In addition to developing Hidden Rain Village into a powerful local nation under Akatsuki's command, the plan to recruit manpower was also indispensable. Yes, he intended to emulate the original plot of the Akatsuki, forming a mercenary group within the organization to recruit elite ninjas who had defected from the 5 great shinobi nations for various reasons. This approach would maximize the organization's effectiveness systemically while squeezing the value out of those rogue ninjas. He had no intention of being a saint to either the ninja villages or those rogues. Taking the scroll from Byakuya, Black Zetsu casually glanced through it after unrolling it, and his eyes lit up. Byakuya had been his most obedient subordinate in all these years. Without even needing orders, he had prepared in advance. In contrast, Obito was not only immature and conflicting but also frequently defied his commands. At this moment, Byakuya spoke up, asking, Black Zetsu-senpai, is this plan of mine acceptable? Black Zetsu nodded, then replied, your plan is generally feasible, but there are some areas that need refinement. Nevertheless, it's sufficient for now. Then please, Black Zetsu-senpai, give me your guidance. Byakuya said very obediently. No need. I trust your judgment. After receiving the plan, Black Zetsu didn't linger and used the Mayfly technique to leave Hidden Rain Village. Obito had been waiting outside the village for some time when he saw Black Zetsu arrive, speaking disdainfully, Black Zetsu, you're finally back. Why not continue discussing with Byakuya? Isn't he your most prized subordinate? Facing Obito's sarcastic remarks, Black Zetsu remained expressionless. Everything is for the Eye of the Moon plan. Besides, Byakuya is so strong, isn't he also being manipulated by us? He thinks we're helping him restore his country, but we can use this excuse to manipulate him. With that said, Black Zetsu tossed the plan to Obito. Hearing these words, Obito's expression softened considerably. Byakuya was indeed powerful, but in the end, he was just a pawn being played with. Byakuya without a Sharingan couldn't see through destiny at all. He could only immerse himself in a false reality. After reading through the plan, Obito furrowed his brow and then carefully reread it again, sinking into contemplation. The document stated that to dominate the shinobi world, one must quietly develop without revealing one's head. During the period of accumulating strength, powerful rogue ninjas must also be recruited to weaken the 5 great shinobi nations. These points seemed average to Obito, even someone like Kakashi knew them. But at the end of the plan, Byakuya detailed the weaknesses of the 5 great shinobi nations and provided strategies to weaken them. The Hidden Sand Village is in a period of transition, and the struggle between the 4th Kazekage and the Scorch-style Yagura has reached a fever pitch. One could disguise oneself as a ninja from an enemy country and exacerbate the conflict between the Kazekage and Kakura. Hidden Stones Village, despite its internal unity, lacked a qualified successor. There were conflicts between the 3rd Tsuchikage and the 2 Jinchuriki, showing their lack of unity. Simply by propagating the idea of the Jinchuriki wanting to seize power, they could sow division among them. In Hidden Mist Village, the Blood Mist policy over the years had caused profound contradictions between civilian ninjas and clan ninjas. Although Hidden Leaf Village appeared flourishing, factional struggles were severe. Not only were there internal conflicts among the high-ranking officials, but the Uchiha and Hyuga clans were also restless. Hidden Clouds Village, while internally united, was dominated by the Raikage's clan. However, it had the least internal conflicts among the villages. Having read all this, Obito couldn't help but acknowledge Byakuya's abilities. He could actually identify the internal conflicts of the 5 great shinobi nations through intelligence gathering. Simply by instigating conflicts as outlined above, even if the 5 great shinobi nations did not descend into internal strife, they would be left in a state of unease. Perhaps many powerful jonin would intervene at that time, joining their ranks and becoming aides to the Eye of the Moon plan. However, Byakuya's speed in gathering intelligence was also astonishingly fast. Seeming to sense Obito's doubts, Black Zetsu came over to explain, Byakuya fears retaliation against the 5 great shinobi nations. The destruction of Hidden Village and the subsequent estrangement of the 5 great shinobi nations are inextricably linked. With that, Black Zetsu recounted what had happened back then. The Uzumaki clan of Hidden Village was an ally of Hidden Leaf Village during the founding of the village. They assisted Hidden Leaf Village in controlling the Land of Fire and provided Jinchuriki and numerous sealing techniques. However, over time, the isolated Uzumaki clan overseas began to attract the covetous eyes of the other shinobi villages. Eventually, in accordance with an unspoken agreement among the major shinobi villages, they jointly attacked Hidden Village. After hearing the account of Hidden Village's demise, Obito's expression subtly changed. He had never realized that beneath the village's seemingly bright facade lay so much darkness. When Hidden Village was besieged by ninja forces from several major powers, Hidden Leaf Village surprisingly chose to stand idly by. This was a betrayal of his own will of fire. Why didn't Hidden Leaf Village protect its ally, its comrade? Nowadays, even the shinobi of the Uzumaki clan prefer to wander rather than seek refuge in Hidden Leaf Village. Perhaps they had also grown completely disillusioned with Hidden Leaf Village. After retracting his gradually drifting thoughts, Obito dispelled his suspicions of Byakuya. Byakuya's hatred towards the 5 great shinobi nations was genuine. He truly wanted to destroy them. Wait a minute, does that mean when Byakuya and the others contacted us 6 months ago, they were actually very dangerous? Obito, which village do you want to weaken first? At this moment, Black Zetsu suddenly spoke, cutting off Obito's thoughts. Obito fell silent. He wasn't sure which village to weaken first. Should it be Hidden Mist Village, which he held deep animosity towards, or Hidden Leaf Village, the strongest of the 5 great shinobi nations? Emotionally, he desired revenge against Hidden Mist Village. But from a strategic standpoint, he needed to deal with Hidden Leaf Village, the strongest, to ensure the success of the Eye of the Moon plan. Unable to make a decision, Obito glanced subconsciously at Black Zetsu. Eventually, he made up his mind and said coldly, let's start with Hidden Mist Village. It's isolated from the world, so our actions won't alert the other ninja villages. We also need a base outside of Akatsuki. Sure enough, Obito wanted revenge against Hidden Mist Village. Black Zetsu nodded, showing no surprise. After all, Madara Uchiha had once controlled Hidden Mist Village, but now they had to find a way to dispel Obito's suspicions. If Obito realized this was all a conspiracy, he might break away from their control. Chapter 97, Hardworking Nagato. Obito Uchiha has joined the Akatsuki organization. You have gained 3 Tomoe Sharingan, Uchiha Bloodline, Basic Fire Style, and Uchiha Throwing Techniques. After hearing the pleasant system notification sound, Byakuya retracted his gaze from outside the village. As expected of Obito, the benefits of having him join the Akatsuki organization were considerable. Although he didn't manage to obtain a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan, gaining the 3 Tomoe Sharingan and Uchiha Bloodline was still quite good. After receiving the system rewards, Byakuya took out the short sword he carried with him. Through the reflection in the mirror, Byakuya saw his own pair of blood-red 3 Tomoe Sharingan, emitting an eerie and ominous aura. So, this is the 3 Tomoe Sharingan. Starting today, he was also a member of the Uchiha clan. His body now harbored the bloodlines of both Uzumaki and Uchiha. He wondered if these bloodlines could be upgraded and integrated. After all, they both originated from the Sage of 6 Paths. However, compared to the Uzumaki bloodline, the Uchiha bloodline didn't have much chakra. So far, his chakra level was on par with Nagato's, far from reaching the level of a tailed beast, still somewhat weak. Wasting no time, Byakuya began familiarizing himself with the Sharingan. The Sharingan came with 2 innate abilities, enhanced dynamic vision and increased Genjutsu potency. The Genjutsu enhancement wasn't very useful to him since he wasn't skilled in using Genjutsu and had a high resistance to it. But the advantage of dynamic vision was significant, making up for his shortcomings in Taijutsu. After all, he could dominate Chunin and Geinin in combat techniques, but was somewhat lacking against elite Jonin and Kage-level opponents, always relying on sheer strength to achieve miracles. As for the special secret techniques of the 3 Tomoe Sharingan, Byakuya hadn't mastered them yet. He would need to find Uchiha Jonin to ask, or recruit new Uchiha members. After all, there were many rewards to be gained from the Uchiha. After executing a few sword techniques and landing smoothly using Uchiha-style body techniques, Byakuya nodded in satisfaction. In the following time, Byakuya began practicing the basics of fire style, which included several fire style techniques that the Uchiha excelled at. Although the level wasn't high, the destructive power was considerable, though the accuracy was somewhat lacking. However, unlike other ninjutsu, once a fire style hit, the outcome was almost decided. After spending a few hours familiarizing himself with his new abilities, Byakuya left the Akatsuki base, sensing the chakra around him, and prepared to seek out Nagato. The Mengi Kyoshiro and Ganobito had given him a large amount of rewards. Nagato, who possessed the Rinnegan, couldn't afford to be idle. He had to train diligently and improve his strength to provide significant feedback to himself. There was no way he could just laze around. Byakuya found Nagato at the construction site, working with Earth-style ninjas on a water management project. The Land of Rain experienced constant rainfall, leading to frequent floods and soil erosion. During the early years of Hanzo's rule, he managed these water issues with the help of his ninja subordinates, but in his later years, he neglected these responsibilities. However, this was typical of most ninja villages. Ninja villages essentially functioned as mercenary groups for their respective countries, performing missions only when there were commissions and compensation. They were responsible primarily for the villagers within the ninja village itself. Intervening too much in external matters not only lacked financial rewards but also risked backlash from nobles and daimyos. Although the Akatsuki was nominally chosen by Hanzo as his successor, in reality, they did not follow the orders of the daimyo. The daimyo of the Land of Rain had been subdued during Hanzo's era and had become a mere figurehead. Thus, after the Akatsuki took over the Rain village as mess, they were free to reform the Land of Rain. In a few months, they managed to repair many of the roads within the country, allowing ordinary people to travel smoothly within the Land of Rain. Despite being involved in the development of the Rain village, Nagato remained a core high-ranking member of the village. Seeing Nagato using Bansho Tenin to move bricks and Shinra Tensei to block water flow, Byakuya found it somewhat surreal, as these were abilities meant to make the world experience pain. Upon seeing Byakuya, Nagato first directed the Rain ninjas to continue working, then walked over and said, "Byakuya, I heard you had a fight with Yahiko. What were you arguing about this time?" "Just the usual ideological differences. The same old stuff," Byakuya replied, then continued in a slightly melancholic tone, "But Nagato, don't you think using the Sage of Six Paths Rinnegan for this is a huge waste?" Nagato shook his head, then said with a peculiar expression, "Isn't this what you suggested? You said it would help me train my control. And you didn't even pay me." Byakuya's face darkened. He did recall fooling Nagato about this in the past. Nagato then chuckled softly and said, "But I find this life quite good. I can help ordinary people and gain their recognition. I believe the Sage of Six Paths must have thought the same back then, which is why I obtained the Rinnegan." Seeing the positivity in Nagato, Byakuya felt a bit dark-hearted. After pondering for a moment, Byakuya continued, "What I mean is, your efficiency is too low. If you could create puppets and control them from behind the scenes, wouldn't you be able to help more people? Moreover, in the books Hanzo left behind, there's a technique called the Rain Tiger at Will technique. It can manipulate the weather, allowing you to control sunny and rainy days freely, and sense enemies within a barrier. Don't you think you should consider it?" Nagato paused for a moment, then nodded in agreement. His thinking was indeed not as active as Byakuya's, lacking so many ideas. However, if he could truly implement Byakuya's suggestions, it would indeed help more people. "But, Byakuya, are you sure this is about developing Hidden Rain Village and not just enhancing its combat power? Having me control puppets with the Rinnegan and the Rain Tiger at Will technique can certainly improve killing efficiency and prevent enemy ninja from invading the village. These seem like military applications." Nagato rubbed his chin. Noticing Nagato's thoughts, Byakuya frowned. "I'm talking about jutsu related to civilian life, so don't overthink it. Without me, could Hidden Rain Village have developed this quickly?" "That's true," Nagato conceded. Nagato never doubted Byakuya's abilities but was wary of his ambitions. With Hidden Rain Village's current capabilities, it was more than capable of self-defense. They could even reduce some military forces to focus on economic development. However, Byakuya's plans clearly seemed to be heading towards starting a new ninja world war. Moreover, although Byakuya verbally dismissed concerns about the Land of Whirlpools, who could truly know what Byakuya was cooking right now? At this moment, Nagato suddenly remembered something and said, "By the way, last time when Conan and I were helping at the orphanage, someone was spying on us. Was that one of your subordinates? Someone spying on Nagato? It must be Black Zetsu." After pondering for a moment, Byakuya shook his head slightly. "I don't have such subordinates. But if someone is secretly watching you and Conan, they are trying to challenge the Akatsuki. I will find out who they are." Chapter 98, Diva Path Hanzo. Hearing this, Nagato nodded slightly, "Then I can rest assured." Nagato was well aware that once Byakuya focused on this matter, the ones to suffer wouldn't be the Akatsuki, but rather the ninjas targeting them. Even the one-stop of the ninja world Hanzo of the Salamander had been defeated by Byakuya. However, Nagato still felt a bit troubled by Byakuya's proposal to use the Rinnegan to create puppets. The Rinnegan could indeed control puppets remotely through black rods, but the effectiveness was lacking. Besides, Hidden Rain Village lacked the secret techniques and materials for making puppets. Noticing Nagato's hesitation, Byakuya said, "Nagato-senpai, I've already prepared the puppet materials for you. You just need to come with me to the base." Nagato didn't refuse. He glanced at the distant construction site and said, "Okay, give me a moment to give some instructions, and then we can head out." Byakuya nodded, watching as Nagato communicated with the rain ninjas, feeling a sense of satisfaction as if his big dumb kid was finally growing up. Though Byakuya's physical age was younger than Nagato and the others, he always regarded them as younger brothers. It didn't take long for Nagato to rejoin him, and the two of them headed towards the base, eventually arriving at a laboratory. Upon entering the lab, Nagato immediately noticed the puppets placed on the floor and frowned. "Byakuya, these are human puppets, aren't they?" Although he wasn't an expert in puppet techniques, he knew that these puppets weren't ordinary ones, they were taboo human puppets among puppet masters. Unlike ordinary puppets, human puppets were made from the corpses of ninjas and could use the abilities the deceased had in life, making them nearly perfect puppets. Using such a method to enhance strength was something Nagato couldn't accept. Byakuya nodded and led Nagato to the human puppets, explaining, "Only human puppets can fully utilize the Rinnegan's abilities. Don't worry about the strength of these corpses. After all, they were all purchased from the black market and were powerful individuals in life, each with the strength of a Jonin." Considering that Nagato was still relatively naive, Byakuya added, "Moreover, they were all rogue ninjas who committed numerous crimes in their lifetime, so you don't have to worry about any moral issues." Hearing that these human puppets were made from the bodies of rogue ninjas, Nagato felt a bit relieved. As an orphan who had grown up amidst the flames of war, he didn't have any particular psychological scruples about it. He was only concerned about whether using human puppets would affect the reputation of Hidden Rain Village. Seeing the expression on Nagato's face, Byakuya felt a bit sentimental. Nagato, who hadn't experienced the massacre event, was still naive, always caring about the minor impacts of such actions. The Nagato from the original timeline was different. The composition of the 6 paths of pain was quite complex. Besides Yahiko, who was turned into the Deva path, the rest were ninjas Jiraiya, making it hard not to suspect that Nagato had some peculiar tastes. However, that version of Nagato had also inherited Yahiko's original dream, to become the sole god of the new world and use absolute violence to intimidate the entire ninja world to maintain peace. But due to Jiraiya's 3 years of teaching, the malice in Yahiko and Nagato's hearts was sealed away, only to be unleashed after experiencing heart-wrenching pain. Compared to the Nagato from the original story, Byakuya considered the current one as pure as a lily. As Nagato circled around the human puppets, he noticed a familiar puppet. Upon closer inspection, he realized it was none other than Hanzo of the Salamander. Could the rumors in the village be true? Was Hanzo, who was supposedly imprisoned by Byakuya, already dead and made into a human puppet? At this moment, Byakuya walked over, introducing with enthusiasm, "Nagato-senpai, this is my masterpiece. I suggest you use it as your core puppet and call it the Deva Path." Nagato didn't respond immediately, but instead looked at Byakuya and asked, "Is Hanzo already dead?" Byakuya shook his head and then said, "Hanzo isn't dead, but he's no longer fit to appear in public. However, we still need his name to deal with those who don't recognize our authority." Nagato looked at Byakuya for a long time, sighing softly in his heart. Hanzo's corpse is right here, yet Byakuya insists he's not dead. However, he could understand Byakuya's reasoning. If Hanzo were still alive, he would undoubtedly pose a hidden threat to Hidden Rain Village. But they also needed Hanzo's influence to deal with current challenges. The only way to navigate this difficult period was to turn Hanzo into a human puppet. After all, in the eyes of most civilians in the Land of Rain, Hanzo was still the hero who led them in resisting the 5 great nations and kept the Land of Rain out of the vortex of war. With these thoughts in mind, Nagato silently picked up the Hanzo puppet and directly inserted the black rods into the corpse. These black rods acted as chakra receivers, allowing remote control of the puppets, substituting the outdated chakra threads. In a sense, Nagato was the foremost puppeteer in the ninja world, far surpassing the likes of Sasori and Chio in power. Having completed the Hanzo puppet, Nagato turned his attention to the other human puppets and busied himself in the laboratory. He still wasn't fully familiar with the Rinnegan's capabilities and needed to think carefully about how to allocate them. To use these puppets effectively and turn them into a fighting force would take considerable time. Several hours later, Nagato temporarily left the Akatsuki base, leaving the puppets in Byakuya's care. Although human puppets were powerful, maintaining them was the most troublesome aspect, with preservation alone being incredibly difficult, not to mention other issues. After Nagato left, Hanzo returned from the adjacent training base. He had originally intended to report the training situation to Byakuya, but upon seeing the puppet that looked exactly like him, his expression turned bleak. "Byakuya, what's the meaning of this puppet?" It looks exactly like me. Byakuya glanced at Hanzo and replied, "This is Nagato-senpai's puppet. Although you've gone into hiding, your title as the demigod still holds some sway. At the very least, it can be used to intimidate others. And once it's revealed to be a puppet, it can lure some ambitious individuals into a trap." Hearing this, Hanzo snorted, "I've dealt with puppeteers before. Human puppets can use the abilities the person has in life. Can you fake my abilities?" "Of course not." Byakuya gently shook his head. "But isn't Hanzo-sensei here? When the opportunity arises, you can pretend to be your own puppet and go out." After a pause, Byakuya continued, "And how do you know my puppet isn't as good as you?" Hearing Byakuya's seemingly endless schemes, Hanzo fell silent. He had thought his defeat by Byakuya was due to bad luck and threats. But now it seemed he was quite fortunate. If he hadn't surrendered quickly, he wouldn't just lose his title as the demigod. Heck, he might not even have the chance to live out his days peacefully. Reflecting on this, Hanzo realized the depth of Byakuya's plans and his own good fortune in having aligned with him instead of resisting further. Chapter 99, Conversation with Hanzo. Regarding Byakuya's latter statement about himself being inferior to a human puppet, Hanzo still held strong objections. He was a demigod, after all. How could he be inferior to a puppet? Could an ordinary puppet use water body flicker? Could it release salamander poison? Well, it actually could. However, in high-level battles, puppetry was often seen as inadequate. The reason was simple: while puppet techniques were powerful in many respects, they had a fatal flaw: they required a puppeteer to control them. No matter how strong a puppeteer was, they could only control their puppets within a range of a few dozen meters. For a Kage-level opponent, this distance could be closed in an instant. If the puppeteer was taken out, the puppets, no matter how powerful, would be rendered useless. Reflecting on this, Hanzo began his critique, speaking from his experience as a veteran. "Byakuya, I think having Nagato use puppetry might be a waste of his talents. He possesses the Rinnegan, after all. The most powerful puppeteer is Chio from Hidden Sand Village, and even she is no match for me." Hearing this, Byakuya glanced at Hanzo and responded calmly, "Hanzo-sensei, have you considered that the strongest puppeteer in the ninja world might not be Chio, but someone else? If you were to encounter this person, your chances of winning wouldn't be high either." Hanzo frowned and quickly asked, "If Chio isn't the strongest puppeteer, then who is?" Byakuya showed a mysterious smile. "Hanzo-sensei, think about how this current ninja war started. Aside from the accumulated tensions between the major villages, what was the initial trigger?" Hanzo thought for a moment and then said, "It was the disappearance of the third Kage, and Hidden Clouds Village took the opportunity to attack Hidden Sand Village." Byakuya nodded. "Guess why the third Kage disappeared, and who killed him? And when he disappeared, why did Elder Chio's grandson also vanish?" "Elder Chio's grandson?" Hanzo was puzzled. He hadn't paid attention to Amir Gainin. At this point, Byakuya continued, "Chio's grandson, Seisaori, is a genius puppeteer from Hidden Sand Village. After his parents were killed by Hidden Leaf Village's White Fang, he created the mother and father puppets. It was he who killed the third Kage. That's impossible. How could a young boy kill the Kage? Besides, the third Kage wielded magnet style, which is the natural counter to puppets." Hanzo quickly denied it. He couldn't believe Seisaori had the strength to kill the third Kage. What if he used a sneak attack? If he arranged to meet the third Kage in secret without bringing his puppets, would the Kage refuse to meet a genius puppeteer from his own village? In such a scenario, a sudden attack would have a high chance of success. After listening to Byakuya's analysis, Hanzo fell into deep thought. This scenario did increase the chances of success significantly. However, the third Kage was known as the strongest Kage. Even if ambushed, he should have been able to react in time. If he seized the opportunity, Seisaori wouldn't have stood a chance against him. Yet, the third Kage had indeed disappeared, and Seisaori vanished along with him. If any other powerful ninja had killed the Kage, they wouldn't have concealed it. For the other four major villages, assassinating a Kage would be a testament to their strength. Think about it further. Under what circumstances would a puppeteer be able to counter magnet style and also be immune to your poisons? Byakuya continued to prompt Hanzo, a mocking expression playing on his face. Hanzo pondered for a long time. The weakness of a puppeteer lay in their physical body. As long as the chakra threads could be traced, the puppeteer's frail body could be targeted for a direct confrontation. To win in a direct battle, a puppeteer had only two options: either be personally stronger than the enemy or eliminate the inherent weaknesses of being a puppeteer. At this point, Hanzo had a faint idea and tentatively said, "Byakuya, are you suggesting that one could turn themselves into a human puppet, hiding their real body among the other puppets? Byakuya nodded slightly. Hanzo-sensei, your insight is sharp. Unfortunately, Elder Chio did not think of this back then, but her grandson did. That's how he was able to kill the strongest Kazekage, the third Kazekage, at such a young age. But seriously, just the thought of such a monster existing in the ninja world keeps me up at night, always on edge. You're one of those monsters too. Hanzo thought to himself, but Byakuya's idea indeed made him feel a chill. Back when Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Rain Village clashed over a decade ago, he used salamander poison to defeat the Hidden Sand Village forces, forcing them to retreat from the Land of Rain. Chio's puppet brigade left a lasting impression on him. If puppeteers were immune to poison, he would have paid a much steeper price. If Chio had turned herself into a human puppet back then, his chances of victory would have been slim. He would have had to rely solely on his masterful swordsmanship and taijutsu to dismantle the puppets. At this moment, Hanzo suddenly thought of something and asked, Byakuya, where did you get this information? Byakuya frowned slightly. Hanzo-sensei, don't underestimate my intelligence network and analytical skills. This is the information network of the Uzumaki clan? Even after their destruction, they still have such resources. Hanzo sighed with admiration, seeming to have found his answer. He, as an ordinary person, even if he had the fortune to become a semi-deity in the ninja world, lacked the deep-rooted heritage of clans like the Senju and Uzumaki, which spanned centuries. His era only spanned a little over a decade, whereas these bloodline clans had endured for hundreds of years, producing formidable individuals every few decades that caught people's attention. Since Hanzo was speculating on his own, Byakuya didn't bother explaining further, as everything could simply be attributed to the long-extinct Uzumaki clan. Given the richness of his bloodline, even if an ancestor of the Uzumaki were resurrected, he would still be a direct descendant of the Uzumaki clan, and no one would doubt his identity. At this moment, Hanzo seemed to recall something and said seriously, Byakuya, earlier you mentioned that Seisaori killed the third Kazekage. So, Seisaori should still be wandering the ninja world now. Are you thinking? Byakuya nodded. Yes, I do have the idea of recruiting Seisaori. The Akatsuki currently has many members, but we still lack true elites. We need the addition of this fresh blood. Hearing this, Hanzo thought to himself. Still not enough. There are already several Kage-level strong warriors. Apart from the shortage in numbers of ninja and territorial area, the strength of Hidden Rain Village now far exceeds that of Hidden Sand Village, ranking among the top 5 ninja villages. However, Byakuya shook his head, speaking earnestly, not enough yet. We need at least the strength to overwhelm the 5 major ninja villages. We are still far from that. However, aside from recruiting Seisaori, Byakuya also intended to gather more powerful ninjas. After all, their strength would ultimately strengthen Byakuya himself. Chapter 100, The Possibility of Forming the Akatsuki. Hanzo couldn't understand Byakuya and had no idea where Byakuya's sense of crisis came from in the first place. During his rule over Hidden Rain Village, having a qualified elite Jonin successor was already a luxury. Now, the Akatsuki not only possesses several Kage-level combatants but its leader, Byakuya, seems intent on recruiting more subordinates, including notorious figures like Seisaori of the Red Sand. But it's best for this old man, abandoned by his time, to keep his mouth shut. Though he had concealed his identity and stayed at the Akatsuki base for these days, he learned about the current situation in Hidden Rain Village through interactions with Akatsuki members. During his imprisonment, not only did Hidden Rain Village not fall into chaos, but it even developed remarkably well. The jonin and nobles who usually acted timidly in front of him now all obey the orders of the Hidden Rain Village leader, and the entire village exuded an atmosphere of prosperity and vitality. This was something he, in his past, could never achieve no matter what. Hearing this news, he didn't deny that he was already old, and the thought of resisting had faded away. Byakuya glanced at Hanzo, fully aware of Hanzo's subtle thoughts and secretly disdainful of this demigod's limited perspective. In the future Akatsuki, there were already 10 ninjas capable of capturing Jinchuriki alone. With such combat power gathered together, even a major village like Hidden Leaf Village could be conquered through sheer force, but due to various reasons, the Akatsuki's combat power could not be consolidated. Thinking about it, it was odd for a group of ruthless rogue ninjas to come together with cohesion. However, in Byakuya's view, the greatest role of the future Akatsuki organization wasn't capturing the tailed beasts, but the intelligence and knowledge within their minds. He must find a way to make them serve the organization. Recalling memories from his previous life, Byakuya pondered who would be suitable for recruitment. Currently, amid the Ninja World War, there weren't many rogues daring to wander around the ninja world. Byakuya could think of even fewer names. After careful consideration, there were only 3 people suitable for recruitment. First was Seisaori of the Red Sand, who assassinated the third Kazekage and was currently one of the strongest puppet masters. Second was Kakazu, who turned to a belief in money after failing to assassinate the first Hokage, now a renowned bounty hunter. The last person was Orochimaru, a Leaf Village rogue. Although a contemporary of the Sannin, he was not favored by the third Hokage and later defected due to his research into forbidden techniques. Among these three, Sasori of the Red Sand and Orochimaru were difficult to locate. Both Sasori and Orochimaru were research-oriented ninjas who spent most of their time hidden away in corners of the ninja world conducting experiments, aside from occasional ventures for materials. Only Kakazu's whereabouts were easily confirmable. Kakazu was a well-known bounty hunter in the ninja world. By patiently monitoring various black markets across countries, one could easily find Kakazu's whereabouts. After spending several days, Byakuya obtained information about Kakazu from his subordinates. Kakazu was currently active within the borders of the Land of Fire, seemingly aiming to collect more bounties while Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Leaf Village were still in a state of war. Hidden Mist Village, having lost the 3 tails and 7 of the Mist Blades, no longer had the strength to continue fighting. After learning this information, Byakuya decided to immediately head to the Land of Fire to track down Kakazu's whereabouts. While there, he planned to assess the situation within the Land of Fire and see if he could stir up some trouble, such as sowing discord between the daimyo and Hidden Leaf Village. Before leaving, Byakuya visited Hidden Rain Village Tower to inform Yahiko that he would be away. Upon returning to the base, he briefly briefed Akon. After the Akatsuki took control of Hidden Rain Village, Akon had been tasked with managing logistics for the Akatsuki organization. Byakuya didn't want such talent wasting away at home. Once these matters were settled, Byakuya headed to the Akatsuki's underground base and departed from Hidden Rain Village with Hanzo. Hanzo, with his deep cunning and considerable strength, could pose a threat if he decided to act against Yahiko and the others while Byakuya was away, potentially exposing the fact that Hanzo was still alive. During the journey to the Land of Fire, Hanzo, dressed in a fire cloud robe and an animal mask, frowned and said, "Byakuya, I'm already quite old. I really don't want to leave Hidden Rain Village at this time. And if my identity were to be exposed, wouldn't that cause trouble for the Akatsuki?" Byakuya looked at Hanzo and said frankly, "Don't worry too much, Hanzo-sensei. I'm bringing you out because I'm concerned that once I leave, you might re-establish contact with your former subordinates in Hidden Rain Village." Faced with Byakuya's straightforwardness, Hanzo's expression turned peculiar. "With how well you've governed Hidden Rain Village, why would I want to restore it? Wait for you to come back and then fight again?" Byakuya shook his head gently and replied, "I trust you, Hanzo-sensei. After all, you're my teacher. But I don't trust your subordinates and those corrupt elements within the Land of Rain. They will surely try to bring you back to oppose Yahiko's reforms." Hanzo fell into silence, knowing that Byakuya was speaking the truth. Due to the trickle-down effect, the Land of Rain and Hidden Rain Village had become significantly corrupt compared to a dozen years ago, and although the Akatsuki's reforms were beneficial to the Land of Rain, they had offended a minority. These people would definitely be unwilling and would surely cause trouble. Seeing Hanzo fall silent, Byakuya spoke earnestly, "Hanzo-sensei, I'm actually glad Denzo has manipulated our relationship. Otherwise, if you had truly accepted the Akatsuki, we wouldn't be able to kill so easily. I've always disliked the back-and-forth arguments in meetings. It's much easier to deal with pests." Hanzo was seeing Byakuya this seriously for the first time, and that decisive look reminded him of his past self. But now, he seemed somewhat afraid of that intensity in Byakuya's eyes, his own resolve wavering. Yet with wavering resolve came hesitation in action, and a blade in uncertain hands could no longer slay formidable foes. 15 years ago, he would have preferred to die in battle rather than surrender. Even if Byakuya had threatened him, he would have chosen to kill Salamander, Ibuse, to continue the fight. Seeing Hanzo lost in thought about the past, Byakuya half-jokingly, half-seriously remarked, "Actually, I could just release you now, Hanzo-sensei. You could round up the remnants of the Land of Rain organizations in one fell swoop." Hanzo wasn't sure if Byakuya was joking, but he explained nonetheless, "I have no intention of leaving the Akatsuki. Don't test me further. Besides, Ibuse is in your hands now. At most, I can only use 70% of my strength. Just let me retire peacefully. Have you seen through me, Hanzo-sensei? My acting skills must be terribly clumsy." Byakuya scratched his head, his expression returning to a harmless look. He stood up from the roadside stone and continued on the journey with Hanzo. Chapter 101, Kakazu and Uchiha free. After leaving the Land of Rain and entering the Land of Fire, the weather became noticeably clearer. Basking in the warm sunlight, Byakuya couldn't help but reflect on how much more suitable the Land of Fire was for human habitation compared to the Land of Rain. It was not only better for farming, but the air lacked that damp, moldy smell. With such rich natural conditions, it was no wonder that Hidden Leaf Village always managed to fight 3 against 1 in every Ninja World War. Hidden Leaf Village might be weak at times, but its land and population allowed it to lose many times and still slowly recover during peaceful periods through commerce. In contrast, the other major ninja villages all had significant geographical disadvantages. Their only noteworthy advantage was being easy to defend and hard to attack. As for the small country's ninja villages, they had even more fatal flaws. The Land of Rain was a battleground in all 4 wars, with a climate unsuitable for production. The Land of Grass was a prison, the Land of Iron was the samurai country, and the lands of rivers and hot water were mere buffer zones, half subservient to Hidden Leaf Village. When Hashirama Senju unified the Land of Fire, he almost occupied the most fertile areas of the ninja world, leaving behind regions with high governance costs. Byakuya suspected that the reason Hashirama didn't conquer the entire ninja world was not just to avoid retaliation from the other 4 great ninja villages and to maintain a balance of power, but also due to the unique nature of the ninja profession. Ninjas were essentially mercenaries, and ninja villages were mercenary organizations. While some low-level commissions could sustain the livelihood of geinin, they were insufficient for chunin and jonin. If peace were truly maintained, how would ninjas earn a living? Would they rely on the stipends from the daimyo? Suppressing his thoughts, Byakuya continued on his journey, visiting towns and villages along the way as a traveler, inquiring about the lives of ordinary people in the ninja world. Witnessing this, Hanzo fell into deep confusion. Byakuya's outings were not to recruit new members, so why was he conversing with these commoners? Although commoners were the patrons of ninjas, and ninjas relied on these commissions for their livelihood, ninjas and commoners were fundamentally 2 different classes. Even a ninja who had yet to graduate from the academy could single-handedly take on several adults. A qualified chunin could easily kill dozens of commoners. The disparity in strength was almost in another dimension. Only samurai using chakra could pose a threat to ninjas. Byakuya couldn't be bothered to explain his intentions to Hanzo. After asking a few questions of the villagers, he continued on his way to the black market. The conversations with the villagers were fruitful, but not significantly so. Although the ninja world had nobles and daimyo as nominal rulers, the existence of chakra meant that the productivity of the ninja world's lower classes was consistently good. Moreover, the vast strength disparity between ninjas and commoners made it very difficult to use commoners against ninja villages and daimyos. It might only be possible if chakra training techniques were popularized, turning everyone into a ninja. However, under the current circumstances, this was impossible. Though ninjas seemed common, they were actually extremely rare. Perhaps only 1 in 100 people could become a ninja. Most people with the potential to become ninjas lived around ninja villages. Frankly speaking, the time when ordinary people in the ninja world were most powerful was when they were turned into white zetsu under the infinite Tsukuyomi. Unless there was a special method to forcibly enhance people's strength, Byakuya concluded that the curse mark might be the only option. However, the success rate of the curse mark was not much higher than that of wood-style experiments, with a very high mortality rate. From the western part of the Land of Fire, Byakuya dawdled all the way to the eastern part. It took him half a month to track down Kakazu's exact whereabouts, but even then, he was a step too late. Kakazu was not in the black market. Byakuya directly asked the black market boss, "Where did Kakazu go?" The black market boss hesitated, reluctant to reveal Kakazu's whereabouts, as Kakazu's reputation in the major black markets was too well known. However, after Hanzo lifted him by his collar, the boss obediently replied, 2 hours ago, Lord Kakazu accepted a commission and left." Byakuya frowned, impatiently asking, "What commission did Kakazu accept?" The black market boss quickly produced the bounty list and handed it to Byakuya. Flipping through it casually, Byakuya saw that the first few pages listed Hashirama Senju and Tobirama Senju, with bounties starting at 10 million. Some pages had been torn out, likely by Kakazu. After inquiring about the remaining targets from the black market boss, Byakuya and Hanzo left, heading in the direction indicated by the boss. Watching their departing backs, the black market boss sighed in relief but began to worry for Kakazu. He wondered if these 2 ninjas were seeking revenge against Kakazu. Though Kakazu was notorious in the ninja world, he had a good reputation in the black market. Besides the targets on the bounty list, he rarely killed innocents. Crucially, every time Kakazu completed a mission, the black market could take a cut. Losing Kakazu would mean losing a significant source of income. After half an hour of traveling through the forest, Byakuya suddenly stopped. He sensed several powerful chakras ahead, at least jonin level in strength. Among them was an extremely mixed chakra, which was undoubtedly Kakazu. Only Kakazu could possess such a complex chakra, given that he was a ninja with 5 lives, his strength infinitely close to Kage level. Signaling Hanzo to stop, Byakuya and Hanzo suppressed their chakra presence and crept forward. Soon, they saw two groups of ninjas in a standoff. More accurately, it was the bounty hunter Kakazu facing a group of Uchiha ninjas with fan-patterned uniforms and glowing red eyes. Among these Uchiha, some had one Tomoe, some had two, and there were even those with three Tomoe Sharingan. Kakazu and the Uchiha in a fight, this should be interesting. Seeing this, Hanzo became intrigued. After following Byakuya for so many days, he finally got to witness a ninja battle instead of boring investigations. Byakuya also became interested. There was a saying in the ninja world, in one-on-one combat, the Uchiha are invincible. However, Kakazu, with his 5 lives, was equivalent to 5 Jonin. Byakuya wondered if this group of Uchiha could stand up to Kakazu. Perhaps Kakazu might even gain an Uchiha heart. At that moment, Byakuya noticed a short-statured Uchiha among the crowd, who had activated his 3 Tomoe Sharingan. It's rare for an Uchiha of that age to awaken the 3 Tomoe Sharingan, and almost every one of them was a well-known ninja. At this point in time, besides Obito, there was only one other person. Thinking of this, Byakuya turned to Hanzo and said, "Hanzo-senpai, which side do you think has a higher chance of winning? How about we make a bet?" Hanzo, always up for a challenge, smirked and responded, "Okay, I'll take you up on that. Who do you think will win?" Byakuya glanced at the Uchiha group, then at Kakazu, and said, "I'll bet on Kakazu. His experience and multiple lives give him a significant advantage." Hanzo rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Fair enough. I'll bet on the Uchiha then. They might surprise us with their Sharingan abilities." With their bets placed, Byakuya and Hanzo settled in to watch the unfolding battle, both eager to see how the fight would progress and who would come out on top. In Chapter 102, The Origin of the Titled Demigod, Hanzo didn't like betting, especially with Byakuya. From his experience, no matter whom he bet on, unexpected events always seemed to unfold in Byakuya's favor. Even if he wins, there were few benefits. Heck, he might even be outsmarted by Byakuya. I mean, if he had the capacity to even race Byakuya, he wouldn't have become Byakuya's bitch. Thinking of this, Hanzo smiled at Byakuya. "Byakuya, I trust your judgment. So, I'll bet on you to win." Hearing this, Byakuya immediately lost interest in the bet. When did this old man become so shrewd? Had Hanzo regained his intellect after stepping down from the position of demigod? While Byakuya and Hanzo quietly observed, the atmosphere between Kakazu and the Uchiha ninjas grew increasingly tense. They eyed each other warily, ready to strike at any moment. For Kakazu, the Sharingan wasn't as valuable as the Byakugan, but the bounty for Uchiha was still substantial. If he could eliminate these Uchihas, he wouldn't have to worry about food and drink for years. The only problem was that he wasn't confident he could defeat this group. The Uchiha were not ordinary ninjas. It was because they had the advantage of their bloodline limit and were known for working in teams. If he couldn't quickly resolve the 2 Uchiha squads in front of him, prolonged combat might attract nearby Hidden Leaf Village ninjas, leading to a potential siege by Hidden Leaf Village forces. Therefore, Kakazu hesitated, unsure whether to make a move. The Uchiha were also hesitant. Although they were notoriously arrogant, they still held genuine respect for true power. Kakazu, despite being a rogue ninja, had been active since the Warring States period, surviving encounters with the god of shinobi and making a formidable name for himself in the underground black market. Frankly, Kakazu was among the strongest ninjas in the world. Perhaps only Fugaku, the Uchiha clan leader, could rival him. After a tense standoff, Kakazu's greed for money overcame his caution. He quickly created distance and performed a series of hand seals, fire style, fire torrent. In an instant, Kakazu spewed a torrent of flames from his mouth, engulfing the Uchiha in front of him. The massive fire surged like a tidal wave, the heat swiftly scorching the forest floor and turning the trees into charred husks, filling the air with the acrid smell of smoke. The Uchiha, having already dispersed, activated their Sharingan and glared fiercely at Kakazu. Kakazu using fire style, a technique the Uchiha prided themselves on, was an outright insult to their pride. Drawing their kunai and short swords, the Uchiha vanished from their positions and launched an attack on Kakazu. Among them was Shizue Uchiha, leading the charge. He had hoped to avoid this conflict, believing that there was no need for the Uchiha and the rogue ninja Kakazu to fight, perhaps because neither his clan nor he excelled at negotiations. Dodging Kakazu's fireball, Shizue formed a single-handed seal, splitting into 2 clones to flank Kakazu. After a feint, Shizue slashed at Kakazu's arm with his short sword, feeling a brief sense of relief. For a ninja, losing an arm was almost worse than losing their life. Both hand seals and attacks typically required 2 hands. A ninja who lost an arm was usually unable to continue their career, and even someone as powerful as Kakazu would lose a significant portion of their combat ability. However, just then, the severed arm flew back to Kakazu's body, and the wound stitched itself up within seconds. Seeing this, Shishui's momentary relief turned to alarm. He cautiously retreated to his team. A ninja who had once fought the first Hokage was no ordinary opponent. The ability to heal such a wound so quickly explained why no one had managed to kill Kakazu over the years. This was going to be a tough battle. Kakazu also realized the gravity of the situation. Though he hadn't lost a heart yet, he could sense Shishui's formidable prowess. Shishui's reaction speed was extraordinary with the addition of the surrounding Uchiha who were constantly using Genjutsu to disrupt him. Thanks to his earth grudge fear, Kakazu could break free from Genjutsu, but every time he dispelled one, another would follow, making it a relentless onslaught. Taking a deep breath, Kakazu reached into his body, extracting 3 masks from his stitched-up torso. The upcoming battle was going to require his full effort. As Kakazu and Shishui fought, Byakuya sat on a tree branch, observing as a spectator. Intervening in such an intense battle now would neither suit his style nor allow him to enjoy the thrilling spectacle. If only he had learned White Zetsu's video recording technique, he would have liked to document it. Hanzo seemed to share the enjoyment of being a spectator, attentively watching the fight between the Uchiha ninjas and Kakazu, while also occasionally showing a thoughtful expression. At this moment, Kakazu started pulling out his masks, preparing to unleash the 5 elements jutsu. With the support of Earth Grudge Fear and his 5 hearts, Kakazu unleashed a torrent of ninjutsu without restraint. The destructive power was considerable, and the effects were dazzling, reducing the surrounding forest to a flat, charred wasteland. Seeing this scene, Byakuya felt a bit puzzled and asked Hanzo beside him, "I heard that the 3rd Hokage is proficient in the 5 nature transformations. How does he compare to Kakazu? Who is stronger?" "I don't know," Hanzo replied, sticking to his usual tactic of evading questions he didn't want to answer. Byakuya frowned. "Hanzo-senpai, you were once known as the demigod. Haven't you ever fought the 3rd Hokage? How did you earn that title?" Hanzo frowned, sensing Byakuya might have some misconceptions. He began to explain. Village leaders were indeed the strongest ninjas in their villages, but they didn't go around challenging each other to duels. His experiences were rooted in the great ninja wars, not street brawls. His title of demigod came from his terrifying dominance on the battlefield. With his salamander partner, he could decimate enemy troops swiftly. Besides, boasting about one's opponents was a common tactic in the ninja world. Losing provided an excuse, while winning enhanced one's own reputation. Through mutual exaggeration, titles like demigod and the strongest Hokage emerged. After listening to Hanzo's explanation, Byakuya countered, "I think there are plenty of village leaders who engaged in duels. The 2nd Mizukage and 2nd Tsuchikage, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, and even the 3rd Raikage, who recently had to face an entire army alone." Hanzo's expression shifted. Byakuya always seemed to poke holes in his statements. Those figures were monsters among ninjas. Ordinary ninjas got hurt when struck and died when killed. Byakuya didn't give Hanzo more time to explain. Seeing that both Kakazu and the Uchiha had worn each other out, he leaped from the tree branch and headed towards the battlefield. It was time to clean up and reap the benefits. Chapter 103, Shishui's defeat in a clearing within the forest. After an intense battle, Kakazu and the Uchiha group pulled back, panting heavily as they kept a close watch on each other's movements. Neither had ever faced such formidable opponents before, and both were hesitant to continue the fight. Continuing might cost them their lives, but leaving now would mean all the energy and chakra they had expended would be wasted. As they were locked in a standoff, a sudden sound drew their attention. An old ninja and a young ninja appeared before them, walking slowly to the center of the clearing, both wearing eerie smiles. "Damn it, another party is involved." Both Kakazu and the Uchiha clan were alarmed, but their chakra reserves were too low to sustain high-intensity combat unless they chose to risk their lives. Struggling to their feet, Kakazu and the Uchiha raised their kunai, deciding to take the initiative. Byakuya glanced at the Uchiha and then at Kakazu in the distance before turning to Hanzo. "Sensei, you take care of Kakazu? He should have about 3 lives left. Don't mess up." "Humphrey, I don't need you to remind me." Feeling underestimated, Hanzo snorted and walked towards Kakazu. Even if Kakazu was at his peak, he wouldn't be a match for Hanzo. Though Kakazu couldn't die from injuries, Hanzo's scythe was not something to be underestimated. With Kakazu left to Hanzo, Byakuya walked towards Shishui and the other Uchiha. The Uchiha, with their red eyes, stared intently at Byakuya. He looked young and harmless, quite easy to beat up. But sending a boy to fight them seemed to underestimate the Uchiha too much. One of the Uchiha captains, other than Shishui, did not waste any words and immediately activated his Sharingan Genjutsu. Byakuya did not evade the Genjutsu, choosing instead to face it head-on. Seeing Byakuya not avoiding his gaze but looking directly at him, the Uchiha captain smiled. Courageous enough to look into the eyes of an Uchiha, this kid had guts. Did his elders not teach him the terror of the Sharingan? It's time to show him the harsh reality of the ninja world and the sorrow of not having the Sharingan. However, the next moment, Byakuya continued walking towards the Uchiha, showing no signs of being affected by the Genjutsu. Seeing this, the Uchiha captain's eyes widened before he cast the Sharingan Genjutsu again, only to have it fail once more. Byakuya smoothly reached the Uchiha ninja's side and smiled. Why aren't you using the Genjutsu anymore? You can increase its intensity. This is impossible. This is impossible. The Uchiha captain was shocked. He couldn't believe someone could ignore the Sharingan Genjutsu. Your perspective is too narrow. The Sharingan is not invincible. Byakuya paused and then continued. The essence of Genjutsu is to disrupt the five senses by influencing chakra. As long as my chakra is strong enough, you can't affect me. This was indeed the case. The Uchiha could use the Sharingan to beat up ordinary ninjas because ordinary ninjas had inferior chakra reserves, physical attributes, and Genjutsu defenses compared to those with bloodline limits. When facing a truly strong opponent, the Sharingan's effectiveness diminishes. Of course, the Mangekyo Sharingan is an exception. At this moment, Shizui, who had been silent for a long time, also activated his Sharingan Genjutsu. Sensing the chakra fluctuation, Byakuya noticed Shizui. Unlike with the other Uchiha, Byakuya did not dare to underestimate Shizui and chose to temporarily avoid direct confrontation. Ordinary Uchiha were just that, ordinary. Shizui, however, was anything but ordinary. Although Shizui had not used a Mangekyo Sharingan in battle, it was better to be cautious. It was also uncertain if he had awakened it at this point. After subduing the only two Jonin, Byakuya approached the rest of the Uchiha. Forming hand seals, he slammed his palms to the ground and shouted, summoning jutsu. As the smoke cleared, a giant salamander appeared. Byakuya stood on top of the salamander's head and commanded it to release toxic gas. He then channeled his chakra and used the adamantine sealing chains. The Uchiha tried to resist but failed each time. Their fire-style jutsu was drowned out by Byakuya's water-style jutsu. When they used taijutsu, Byakuya effortlessly evaded, even hiding explosive tags among his clones, catching them off guard. Even Shizui, after his slash was dodged by Byakuya's water teleportation jutsu, could only narrowly avoid the venomous chains of the adamantine sealing chains while watching his clan members get captured. After retreating several dozen meters, Shizui crouched on a treetop, both shocked and angry. He did not understand why Byakuya was attacking the Uchiha, but he recognized the salamander and the sealing techniques from Hidden Leaf Village. The salamander was Hanzo the salamander summon. How could it be in the hands of a ninja using Hidden Leaf Village's sealing techniques? Could it be that encountering the bounty hunter Kakazu wasn't a coincidence but part of an organized, planned conspiracy? Was the village working with outsiders to target the Uchiha? Shizui wasn't brave enough to delve further into these thoughts, nor did he have the time. Apart from himself, all the other clan members who acted with him had been captured. Even his situation was precarious. He had to choose between fleeing or fighting desperately. After a moment of contemplation, Shizui chose the latter option. He couldn't abandon his clan members and flee alone, even though the odds were not in his favor. While Shizui was deep in thought, Byakuya, using a mayfly technique, appeared beside him and said impassively, "Stop struggling. You've been poisoned too. You won't get far. If I really wanted to kill you all, I wouldn't have summoned the salamander." Upon hearing Byakuya confirm the identity of the salamander, Shizui was shaken and momentarily let his guard down. Byakuya seized this opportunity, pulling out a black rod and stabbing it into Shizui, then using a sealing technique to restrict his movements. With his actions restricted, Shizui completely lost the ability to resist and was taken back to the clearing in the forest. After tying Shizui with some vines, Byakuya threw him among the other Uchiha. Seeing Shizui's capture, the remaining Uchiha ninjas lost hope of escaping and started cursing, "Damn it, even Shizui got captured. How can this brat be so strong? Where the hell did he come from?" Byakuya glanced at the cursing Uchiha ninja and said calmly, 50,000 ryo. The Uchiha ninja looked confused and asked angrily, "What 50,000 ryo? What are you talking about, kid?" 100,000 ryo. "Feel free to keep cursing," Byakuya said leisurely. He didn't care about others' insults, as long as they paid. If necessary, he could even sell them to the black market. Seeing this, Shizui thought there might be a chance for a turnaround and inched forward a few steps. Chapter 104, Byakuya, the greedy bitch. Who exactly are you? The Uchiha shouldn't have any conflict with you, right? Judging by Byakuya's behavior, this young ninja, who seemed to be from the Hidden Rain village, didn't appear to have any intention of killing them. It might be because he was wary of their clan and village or for some other reason. Shizue wanted to understand why the boy attacked them. It couldn't be that there was really an inside job colluding with outsiders, right? Byakuya glanced at Shizue. The future wielder of the strongest Genjutsu, Koto Umatsukami, was now just a kid, likely concerned with balancing the interests of his clan and the village. An author called him teenager, but I think at this point, he should be around 7 to 8 years old at most, since Shizue asked. Byakuya pondered for a few seconds, then decided to speak truthfully. With a sincere expression, he said, I indeed had no conflict with the Uchiha before, but now I do. You see, Pikazu was my target, but you Uchiha interfered. Isn't that conflict enough? Hearing this, Shizue was stunned. The other Uchiha members looked equally perplexed. After regaining his composure, Shizue quickly explained, Sir, there must be some issue here. We didn't intend to engage with Kakazu in the first place. He attacked us. Is that so? Byakuya appeared doubtful, staring at Shizue as he said, It seems there is indeed a misunderstanding. I thought you were here to steal my prey. You should know that Kakazu has been in the underground black market for many years, and he must carry a lot of money. Robbing him would quickly yield a significant amount of funds. My misjudgment was understandable. But how can you assure me that you weren't after Kakazu's money? We really weren't after Kakazu? Shizue's face was helpless and his lips twitching. While the Uchiha might not have many friends in Hidden Leaf Village, their clan's businesses were quite substantial. They didn't need to capture bounty hunters for money. Moreover, even if they needed money, who would target Kakazu? He was a ruthless person who had even attempted to assassinate the first Hokage. Thinking of this, Shizue cautiously said, Sir, the Uchiha don't lack money. And if this is just a misunderstanding, why not let us go? If you kill us, our clan will surely seek vengeance. Instead, why not form an alliance with the Uchiha? Byakuya shook his head slightly. Welp, what's done is done. Even if I release you now, you will still resent me. And I don't see any benefit in the Uchiha's friendship. The Uchiha are infamous with dark vibes. You couldn't even secure the Hokage position and still face constant exclusion. Hearing words like couldn't secure the Hokage position and constant exclusion. The Uchiha members, aside from Shizue, felt as if their wounds were being reopened. Their Sharingan, which had just been deactivated, was reactivated once again. Kid, one day, the Uchiha will produce a Hokage. That's the past, this is the present. Lord Fugaku is about to run for Hokage, and the fourth Hokage position is already in the bag for the Uchiha. Hearing these complaints, Byakuya glanced at Shizue and then said, Do all Uchiha have such foul mouths? Aren't you worried about getting yourselves killed? Shizue was at a loss for words. Indeed, his clan members' attitudes were rather rude. Although clan leader Fugaku was strong, he didn't seem to meet the standards for running for Hokage unless the Sannin and Minato Namikaze stepped aside and handed the position to the Uchiha. However, the most arrogant and foul-mouthed person here is you, Byakuya. Despite his thoughts, Shizue could see that Byakuya truly had no intent to kill. He was likely stalling for time, waiting for them to offer something in exchange for their release. Sir, what price must we pay for you to release us? Seeing Shizue initiate negotiations, Byakuya held up his fingers and said, 1 million ryo for a Geinin, 3 million for a Chunin, and 10 million for a Jonin. Pay up, and I'll release them immediately. Additionally, anyone who insulted me earlier has to pay an extra 50,000 for each insult. Hearing Byakuya's public pricing, the Uchiha members turned red with anger again. They were proud Uchiha, how could they pay ransom to a kid? And making it so cheap, did he look down on the Uchiha and the Sharingan? On the other hand, Shizue was calculating the ransom, 2 Jonin and 6 Chunin totaled 38 million ryo, plus the insults fee, bringing it to 40 million ryo. This amount wasn't extremely high, but the problem was they didn't have that much money on them. Who carries large sums of money while on a mission? The only valuable items they had were explosive tags and weapons. After some internal calculations, Shizue turned to the Uchiha members and said, Tetsuka, my katana is worth a few million ryo. You all gather what you can and give it to him. Shizue, are you really going to pay ransom? What about the Uchiha's honor if this gets out? Shizue sighed, compared to money and honor, I think our comrades' lives are more important. If this drags on, we won't be able to participate in the frontline battle. Tetsuka hesitated, still struggling with the Uchiha's pride and dignity. At this moment, Byakuya walked over to them, squatted down, and said, That's right. Money can't compare to life. I won't say anything about today, you can make up any reason you want. You seem to care about us a lot. Tetsuka didn't give Byakuya a friendly look. Byakuya nodded slightly, accepting the compliment without shame, I do think I'm a good person. Since becoming a ninja, I've saved many and prevented numerous tragedies. Looking at the shameless Byakuya, Tetsuka turned his head away, choosing to seal himself off from the situation. Shizue slowly moved to his comrades, persuading each one to contribute their valuables. After gathering everything of value, they had about 30 million ryo, still 10 million short of Byakuya's demand. This meant that at least one of them would have to stay behind with Byakuya. Byakuya glanced at the pile of valuables, nodded, and gestured for the salamander to swallow everything. Then, he tossed an antidote to Shizue. Shizue took one pill himself to ensure its safety before distributing the rest to his comrades. After they had all taken the antidote, Byakuya said calmly, "Shizue will stay behind. The rest of the Uchiha can leave." "Why should Shizue stay?" Tetsuka frowned. Before Byakuya could respond, Shizue volunteered, "I will stay. You all must hurry to the front lines to support the village. As long as you gather enough money, I'll be fine." Hearing this, the Uchiha exchanged glances. The Uchiha never abandoned their own, but their weapons had been confiscated, and the chance of overpowering Byakuya was slim. It seemed their only option was to temporarily leave and seek support on the front lines. After a silent exchange of looks, Tetsuka and the others reluctantly departed. Now, in the vast clearing, only Byakuya and Shizue remained. Chapter 105, Kakazu's belief. Once the figures of Uchiha, including Tetsuka, had disappeared, Byakuya turned to Shizue and said, "Shizue Uchiha, they abandoned you. Not one of them volunteered to stay in your place. Is such a family worth your loyalty?" Shizue looked at Byakuya, who was trying to sow discord, and replied, "I stayed of my own volition. Don't ruin the relationship I have with my clan. Once they gather the ransom, they will naturally come to redeem me. I think it's more likely they will bring a group of Jonin to attack me." Byakuya shook his head and spoke of the most probable scenario. Shizue opened his mouth but didn't know how to refute. Given the clan's temperament, the likelihood of them coming to attack was indeed high, at least to reclaim the face lost to Byakuya. "If you know this, why did you let us go?" Shizue couldn't understand Byakuya. To him, Byakuya was an enigma, whether it was his identity or his intentions, everything was unclear. He even vaguely suspected that Byakuya had intentionally left him behind. Byakuya saw through Shizue's thoughts and directly revealed them. "Don't be so formal. Just call me Lord Byakuya. I came today for Kakazu but didn't expect to encounter you as an unexpected surprise. Since capturing you is the same as capturing everyone, I might as well take you all and make some money. Lord Byakuya, you are indeed straightforward." Shizue could feel Byakuya was telling the truth, but his attitude was excessively disrespectful, completely disregarding the Uchiha clan. "Thank you for the compliment. I mostly tell the truth." Shizue, sweating profusely, directly skipped over this topic and got straight to the point. "Lord Byakuya, I wonder what about me caught your eye that made you take action?" "Your talent and strength." Byakuya paused briefly and then continued, "My organization lacks talents like you, so the moment I saw you, I wanted to recruit you." Shizue's expression turned serious, and he shook his head, refusing. "Sorry, I am a ninja of Hidden Leaf Village. I have no intention of joining any other organization, now or in the future." Byakuya countered, "You are a ninja of Hidden Leaf Village, but aren't you also a ninja of the Uchiha clan?" "I am a ninja of Hidden Leaf Village and also a ninja of the Uchiha clan. But I will never become your ninja," Shizue declared firmly, becoming more vigilant towards Byakuya. How did Byakuya know about the conflict between the Uchiha clan and the village? Did the conflict between the Uchiha clan and the village spread outside, known even to ninjas from other villages? Byakuya didn't trouble Shizue, instead chuckling as he said, "I was just joking. Don't be too sensitive. I merely think that instead of being ostracized in Hidden Leaf Village, the Uchiha clan should consider living in a new environment. If you want to enjoy the benefits of staying in Hidden Leaf Village and also aspire to become Hokage, it will only bring immense pain. After all, ever since Madara Uchiha's defection, your clan has completely lost any chance of becoming Hokage. That's the fate of losers, eternally unable to rise again." Hearing these words, Shizue's face darkened. He could sense Byakuya's malice towards the village and the Uchiha clan. Where did this malice come from, and why was he using such venomous words to curse the Uchiha? Just as Shizue was about to retort, Hanzo arrived beside Byakuya, bringing Kakazu along. After a battle lasting over 10 minutes, the injured Kakazu was finally subdued by Hanzo. Now, he only had one heart left, with explosive tags plastered all over his body, preventing him from making any rash moves. Despite Kakazu's strength, he was still slightly inferior to Hanzo, who possessed the power of a genuine Kage. At this moment, Kakazu also noticed the captured Shizue and sighed inwardly. Not only was his prey snatched away, but he himself had become prey. Since when did the ninja world have ninjas who rendered him powerless, and why did two of them appear at once? However, after seeing the salamander beside Byakuya, Pikachu narrowed his eyes slightly. It seemed he had guessed Byakuya and Hanzo's identities. Hey, Uchiha kid over there, our luck is really bad. After expending most of our chakra, we were captured by a third party. But why is the renowned demigod also taking on bounty missions? Even though he had already guessed it, Shisui was still quite shocked to hear the exact identity of the masked ninja as Hanzo of the Salamander. After his identity was guessed, Hanzo fell silent. To outsiders, he was still the demigod. To Byakuya, he often mentioned the title of demigod, but in his heart, he no longer considered himself one. This title felt more like a joke. Being a demigod isn't easy these days since you still have to make some extra money. Byakuya took over the conversation, walking to Kakazu's side, and continued, besides, I'm here specifically to find you, Kakazu. What do you want from me? I only know how to kill and complete missions. Kakazu didn't recognize Byakuya, but out of respect for Byakuya's strength, he responded. Even though he hadn't fought Byakuya, Kakazu recognized that capturing Shisui indicated significant strength. From Kakazu's perspective, Hanzo seemed to be training his successor by targeting a bounty hunter like him. Additionally, it was curious that a figure as prominent as the demigod left Hidden Rain Village without the 5 great shinobi countries noticing. We value your killing skills, Pikachu. And so, we intend to hire you to work for us. Byakuya clapped his hands, signaling the salamander to spit out the loot it had just acquired. Taking Shisui's katana in hand, Byakuya pushed the rest of the loot and weapons toward Kakazu. These items should demonstrate my sincerity. Additionally, there is the fee to buy your loyalty. Given the money involved, Kakazu, I doubt you'll refuse this job. Kakazu fell into deep thought, torn about what to do. Glancing at Hanzo in the distance and then at the loot in front of him, Kakazu eventually nodded, I can work for you, but let's be clear, if I don't get paid on time, I could betray you at any moment. Well, Byakuya nodded, then added, but if you break the agreement, I'll find where you stash of money and destroy it all. Hearing this, Kakazu's heart skipped a beat. Money was his faith, more important than life itself. His only joy in the shinobi world was making money, everything else was meaningless. With that, Byakuya took out a contract he carried and handed it to Kakazu. Kakazu carefully perused the contract, scrutinizing every detail before cautiously signing it. Now a member of the Akatsuki, Kakazu looked over at Shisui and asked, Boss, can I kill this Uchiha? His bounty in the black market is quite high. Chapter 106, Hanzo leading by example, Kakazu joins Akatsuki. You have obtained following rewards: Earth Style, Earth Spear Wind Style, Pressure Damage Lightning Style, False Darkness Fire Style, Searing Migraine Water Style, Water Formation Wall Combination Jutsu, combining different jutsu to achieve an effect greater than the sum of its parts. While Byakuya heard Kakazu's question, his mind was preoccupied with the system rewards. Recruiting Kakazu had granted him a range of high-level A-rank ninjutsu, and even the secret combination jutsu, reminding him of the third Hokage's multi-element technique. Kakazu was indeed a weakened version of the third Hokage, but the gap in their overall abilities was significant. Even with the immortal secret technique, Earth Grudge Fear, Kakazu couldn't match the third Hokage. Earth Grudge Fear provided Kakazu with a high baseline, but it also limited his potential. After receiving his rewards, Byakuya turned to Kakazu and shook his head lightly. I've made a verbal agreement with Shisui. Once the ransom is delivered, he'll be released. Hearing this, Kakazu looked regretful. In the black market, Uchiha bounties, although not as high as those of the Hyuga, were still substantial. Many ninjas were interested in the Sharingan for research and transplantation. However, since Byakuya had already made an agreement with Shisui, Kakazu had to accept it. As a long-time black market operator, he valued his reputation highly. Unless he could eliminate all witnesses without a trace, he wouldn't double-cross anyone. Shisui, hearing Byakuya's words, breathed a sigh of relief. Although he had resigned himself to dying in place of his clan, given the chance to live, who would willingly choose death? After a brief conversation, Byakuya led the group to continue their investigation within the Land of Fire. On one hand, he hoped to find potential recruits for Akatsuki. On the other hand, he aimed to turn Shisui into an ally, reshaping his beliefs to align with Akatsuki's goals and planting him as a sleeper agent within Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha clan. After a few days of investigation, Byakuya didn't find any significant results. However, both Kakazu and Shisui found Byakuya increasingly mysterious. They couldn't discern whether he was conducting espionage in the Land of Fire or simply sightseeing. Conducting espionage in such a blatant manner seemed too bold. Byakuya never hid the fact that he was a ninja, and his flashy attire made him a walking target. He openly referenced Hidden Leaf Village and the Land of Fire, making him seem like a walking bounty, Someone who looked like easy prey. The idea of him sightseeing was even more absurd. What kind of ninja goes on a vacation while recruiting S-rank rogue ninjas and kidnapping Uchiha prodigies? It seemed like he was intentionally provoking others. Hanzo, however, noticed something deeper. Byakuya's approach resembled Yahiko's strategy of trying to gain support from lower-tier ninjas within the Land of Fire, aiming to weaken Hidden Leaf Village's upper echelons. But unlike the Rain Country, the lower-tier ninjas in the Land of Fire lived relatively well. Even if they did form an anti-Hidden Leaf Village organization, they wouldn't necessarily follow Akatsuki's orders and might still view Hidden Rain Village as an enemy. Noticing the confusion among his companions, Byakuya glanced back at them before continuing to lead the way. As they passed a farm, Byakuya offered to help the farmer cultivate some land for 5,000 ryo. Initially skeptical, the farmer agreed after seeing the imposing figures of Kakazu and Hanzo, realizing that if they could cultivate a field, it would be quite profitable this year. Kakazu didn't understand why Byakuya wanted to undertake such a menial task, but for the sake of the additional pay, he started clearing the field of weeds and rocks with his ninjutsu. Seeing Hanzo, wearing his mask, personally working the land, Kakazu asked, "Hanzo-sama, aren't you spoiling Byakuya too much? It looks like you're his subordinate now." In Kakazu's eyes, Byakuya was Hanzo's disciple, and this outing was to train him. But it didn't make sense for the disciple to relax while the teacher did all the work. This wasn't just about protecting the disciple, it was outright pampering, like a doting grandparent. What Kakazu didn't know was that Hanzo had no choice. He would have preferred to stay in Hidden Rain Village, occasionally enjoying the shocked expressions of the Anbu trainees, and then leaving in a dignified manner under everyone's gaze. He was forced to venture out and do the hard labor by Byakuya. However, in front of Kakazu, Hanzo maintained his demigod demeanor. While using water style, to clear the rocks, he said with a meaningful tone, "I am leading by example, educating my disciple through my actions. If I slack off now, how can I expect him to work in the future?" Kakazu was still somewhat skeptical, but Hanzo's determined gaze convinced him to trust the explanation. The experiences of the past few days had made Kakazu more wary of the rumors circulating in the black market. The rumors suggested that Hanzo had secluded himself in Hidden Rain Village, possibly having met some misfortune. However, reality showed that the demigod not only ventured out but also brought his disciple, and was still as formidable as ever. Seeing Kakazu no longer pressing the issue, Hanzo felt relieved. He couldn't afford to lose face in front of Kakazu, though he wondered if Kakazu's reputed exploits were exaggerated. Despite being labeled a watered-down demigod by Byakuya, Hanzo questioned whether Kakazu could indeed have survived an encounter with the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. Meanwhile, Byakuya supervised Shizue's labor while practicing new jutsu. Through their combined efforts, they managed to finish cultivating their designated area. By sunset, they could complete their task. Sitting on the grass, Shizue panted lightly and glanced at Byakuya beside him. After spending a few days together, Shizue realized that Byakuya wasn't a ruthless ninja, but he was puzzled by Byakuya's persistent attempts to recruit him into Hidden Rain Village. Byakuya frequently brought up Hidden Leaf Village's discrimination against the Uchiha and even criticized the Will of Fire. Initially, Shizue tried to argue back, but he quickly gave up, indifferent to Byakuya's words, as his belief in the Will of Fire remained unwavering. Shizue thought that the clan members who faced discrimination were too arrogant and unfriendly. He believed that with enough effort, the village would eventually see an Uchiha Hokage. Just then, Byakuya approached Shizue, offering a freshly grilled fish and asked casually, "Shizue, what's your dream?" "My dream?" Hearing this, Shizue fell into deep thought, unable to answer Byakuya immediately. Chapter 107, Shizue's Dream. Shizue pondered deeply, unsure of his dream. From a young age, he followed his father's orders, rigorously training his body and honing his ninjutsu skills. He graduated from the Ninja Academy shortly after enrolling, becoming a ninja. After experiencing numerous hardships and losing many comrades, he awakened the three Tomoe Sharingan. Yet, he had never seriously considered what his dream was. When asked by his teachers, he would casually brush off the question. After a moment of reflection, Shizue earnestly replied, "My dream is probably to become Hokage." "To become Hokage?" Byakuya gazed at Shizue, a cryptic smile playing on his lips. He then asked, "Every Hidden Leaf Village ninja dreams of becoming Hokage. Why do you want to become Hokage? Is it to bring peace between your clan and the village, or just to trample others underfoot?" Shizue hesitated before responding, "Probably for peace. I want the clan and the village to coexist harmoniously, and I want peace in the ninja world." Hearing this, Byakuya's expression changed before he took a few deep breaths. An Uchiha aiming for Hokage was one thing, but one desiring to bring peace to the world was another, far more dangerous. Such an ambition could lead to extreme measures to achieve an impossible goal. Noticing Byakuya's exaggerated reaction, Shizue frowned, feeling somewhat annoyed. Is there something wrong with my dream? Isn't world peace a good thing? Of course, it's a good thing. Byakuya composed himself, then continued, but I advise you not to reach too high. Being Hokage isn't what you think it is. Even if you become Hokage, you won't achieve your dream. Moreover, when an Uchiha desires to become Hokage, it's a sign of impending doom. Why? Shizue didn't understand what Byakuya was implying, but Byakuya left him with a cryptic remark, time will reveal the answers. After you experience certain events, you will make your choice. Among the many choices, leaving Hidden Leaf Village is the best one. Before Shizue could react, Byakuya vanished. Reflecting on Byakuya's words, Shizue felt a sense of unease. He believed Byakuya knew something about the Uchiha's secrets but was deliberately withholding information. As Shizue tried to find Byakuya, he realized with a start that he had no idea how Byakuya had disappeared. After searching around, he also noted that Hanzo and Kakazu were nowhere to be found. Just then, the sound of rustling leaves reached his ears. Over a dozen Jonin appeared around Shizue, surveying the area. The lead Jonin approached Shizue. They were Uchiha Jonin, seeking Shizue and retaliating against the ninja who attacked him. The leader of the group was none other than Fugaku Uchiha, the strongest Jonin of the Uchiha clan and a prominent figure among Hidden Leaf Village's younger generation. Approaching Shizue, Fugaku frowned and asked, "Where are those attackers?" At this moment, Shizue realized why Byakuya had left. He had sensed the arrival of his clan members, a perceptive ability that was indeed impressive. In response to Fugaku's question, Shizue shook his head slightly. They left earlier. They left earlier. Fugaku's face darkened. He signaled his subordinates to search the area thoroughly. He couldn't believe that the attackers had left without leaving any traces. About 10 kilometers away, Byakuya, Hanzo, and Kakazu walked along a narrow path. Seeing that Shizue was not following them, Hanzo curiously asked, "What happened to that Uchiha kid? Did he escape?" "Escape? Let me go and capture him." Kakazu's eyes lit up. Byakuya shook his head. "I let him go on purpose since the Uchiha reinforcements have arrived. I don't want to engage in a direct confrontation with them right now." "Didn't you want to recruit the Uchiha? Did you fail?" Hanzo inquired. Byakuya glanced at Hanzo and replied, "It's impossible to recruit someone who has faith in the Will of Fire after just a few days of interaction. You give me too much credit. The Will of Fire was proposed by the first Hokage and perfected by the second Hokage. Without it, Hidden Leaf Village wouldn't be able to maintain its position as the top ninja village after 3 ninja wars. So, what's your plan?" Hanzo asked, intrigued by Byakuya's strategy. Byakuya responded calmly, "A ninja who still holds illusions about the village can't be recruited. But if you expose him to enough darkness, causing his faith to collapse, he might become a rogue ninja. It's a good plan, but the success rate is low. Hidden Leaf Village won't dig its own grave." Hanzo shook his head. He had witnessed the strong faith of Hidden Leaf Village's ninjas firsthand. Even at his peak, he couldn't shake their resolve. He doubted Byakuya could succeed, and Hidden Leaf Village wouldn't turn against its own people. Byakuya chuckled, "Then let's wait and see, Hanzo-sensei. My intuition has never been wrong. As long as we don't reveal our true strength, Hidden Leaf Village will inevitably fall into chaos." Hearing the conversation between the master and disciple, Kakazu slowly stopped in his tracks, looking at Byakuya's back. He had the strange feeling that in this master-disciple relationship, Byakuya seemed to be the one in control, while Hanzo appeared to be in a weaker position. However, long ago, when his faith wasn't in money, back when the ninja villages were first being established, he had received a mission from his village to assassinate the first Hokage during a diplomatic mission. After painstakingly defeating a wood clone of the first Hokage, he was spared by the Hokage himself. But when he returned to his village, he was met with punishment from the high-ups, who then turned around and made peace with Hidden Leaf Village, abandoning him. From then on, he never believed in ninja villages. After stealing the village's secret treasure, the Earth Grudge Fear, he began his life of accumulating wealth, becoming the most renowned killer on the black market, with his only belief being in money. Hearing that Shizue, like him, once believed in his village, Kakazu became interested in Byakuya's plan. He couldn't wait to see Shizue fall and become his colleague. He wondered, once Shizue lost his belief in his village, what would he believe in? Would it be himself, or money? Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, Kakazu quickened his pace to catch up with Hanzo and Byakuya. Recently, his mind had been cluttered with annoying thoughts, like weeds. Instead of wasting time thinking about such things, it would be better to focus on how to complete his bounty missions. Chapter 108, Shizue reflects. After spending over 10 minutes, the Uchiha squad still couldn't find any traces. With no other choice, They returned to Fugaku to report the situation. Hearing this, Fugaku's face became cloudy and uncertain. To rescue Shizui, he had searched the Land of Fire for 3 whole days. He had finally heard news of Shizui, but upon arriving at this place, the attackers had already left. Rescuing Shizui without engaging in a fight felt intentional, which left him with a sense of defeat and a hint of irritation. At this moment, a few Uchiha members brought a farm owner to Fugaku. "Captain Fugaku, we have a witness here. Should we use Ganjutsu for interrogation?" Fugaku glanced at the farm owner and, seeing he was just an ordinary person, shook his head. "No need. The Uchiha don't trouble ordinary people. Instead of wasting time here, the front lines still need us." "Yes, Captain Fugaku." The Uchiha ninja quickly nodded in agreement. On the way to the front lines, Fugaku found Shizui. As they sped through the forest, they discussed Shizui's experience after being abducted. "Shizui, did you identify the attackers?" Shizui hesitated a bit but then started to recount the past few days. "Clan leader, that day I was with Tetsuka and the others confronting Kakazu. In a mutually destructive situation, we encountered Hanzo of the Salamander and his disciple." When Shizui mentioned Kakazu, Fugaku's expression didn't change much. He had already learned this information from others, which was why he brought elite Jonin from the clan. Dealing with a strong enemy like Kakazu required more elite forces. But when he heard Hanzo of the Salamander's name, Fugaku was visibly stunned. That name wasn't unfamiliar to him. He had grown up hearing the title of the demigod, but why would Hanzo suddenly leave Hidden Rain Village and attack the Uchiha in the eastern part of the Land of Fire? Could it be that Hidden Rain Village also intended to attack Hidden Lee Village? Seeing Fugaku's troubled expression, Shizui quickly explained, "Clan leader, Hanzo was traveling with his disciple Byakuya. Their target was Kakazu, but they captured us in the process." "Captured the Uchiha on a whim?" Fugaku narrowed his eyes. This showed a blatant disregard for the Uchiha. However, Hanzo indeed had the strength to do so. The Uchiha had declined too rapidly in recent years. During the village's founding period, no one would even raise their eyes against an Uchiha. Now, not only were the Uchiha ostracized by other ninjas in the village, but even small villages like Hidden Rain Village looked down on them. Thinking of this, Fugaku continued to ask, "Shizui, during the days you were taken, did they torture you, interrogate your ninjutsu, or try to take your Sharingan?" Shizui gently shook his head. "No, Byakuya did not torture or interrogate me. He just took me along for a few missions nearby." At this point, Shizui seemed to remember something and added, "However, Byakuya noticed the conflict between the village and the clan and outright said that the Uchiha could never become Hokage. He even suggested that it would be better to defect early. The dream of becoming Hokage was an obsession for the Uchiha clan, but it was something that is impossible. Heck, even the higher-ups didn't dare to openly say that an Uchiha couldn't become Hokage." Byakuya's evaluation of the Uchiha made Fugaku's face darken with anger. A mere Hidden Rain Village ninja really seems to have courage to mock the Uchiha. When an Uchiha becomes Hokage, Hidden Rain Village will pay for this insult. Shizui remained silent, keeping Byakuya's attempt to recruit him hidden in his heart. After venting his anger, Fugaku's expression eased a bit as he consoled himself, "But in the end, they didn't dare kill the Uchiha and even released you without harm." "You're right, clan leader." Shizui responded perfunctorily, and the group continued towards the front lines. A few hours later, Fugaku, Shizui, and their team arrived at the forward camp on the eastern front. Unlike Hidden Leaf Village's camp in the Land of Grass, this camp was noticeably smaller. The reason was simple. Although Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Leaf Village were at war, they hadn't engaged in large-scale battles. Instead, they skirmished along the long eastern coastline with small squads. In terms of both numbers and quality, Hidden Leaf Village's ninjas surpassed those of Hidden Mist Village. With significant losses in their key forces, including the 3 Tails and the 7 ninja swordsmen, Hidden Mist Village had fallen behind. Now, they could only rely on their bloodline limit users to barely hold their ground against Hidden Leaf Village, leading to a high-level showdown primarily involving these elite ninjas. Upon entering the camp, Fugaku, as the clan leader, was called to the command center. Shizui followed the other clan members into the Uchiha tent, greeted them coolly, and sat in a corner to quietly reflect on the questions left by Byakuya. What exactly was his dream? After pondering for a long time, Shizui still did not have a concrete answer. The discussions of the clan members around Shizui reached his ears. Initially, they were talking about the battles on the front lines, but soon the conversation shifted to the topics of the police force and the Hokage. The topic of the police force revolved around how to handle troublesome villagers and how to demonstrate the authority of the Uchiha. The Hokage topic was even more heated. Although the election for the 4th Hokage had not yet begun, The clan members were already discussing how to suppress the families that oppressed the Uchiha and how to consolidate Uchiha's power once one of their own became Hokage. Hearing these discussions, Shizue felt a sense of confusion and alienation. He suddenly felt out of place among his clan members. In the mouths of these clan members, the higher-ups constantly ostracized the Uchiha, but before they had even become part of the village leadership, they were already thinking about how to retaliate against the current higher-ups. Furthermore, while serving in the police force, they often abused their power to bully ordinary people. These clan members were no different from the so-called evil higher-ups they criticized. The only difference was that the Uchiha could only bully ordinary people. However, as an Uchiha, Shizue still wanted to improve the relationship between the clan and the village leadership. At the very least, he wanted to prevent his clan members from being so hostile toward the higher-ups and from bullying ordinary ninjas. But how to achieve this? Shizue himself had no idea. Perhaps, as Byakuya had said, only time could provide an answer. At this moment, Shizue realized that he was not the only one in the corner of the tent. Besides himself, there was also a very young child. The child seemed not yet old enough to attend the ninja academy. Why was he on the front lines of the battlefield? With this in mind, Shizue turned to Tetsuka Uchiha beside him and asked, "Tetsuka, who is he?" Tetsuka glanced at the child in the corner and then said, "Shizue, you don't recognize Itachi? He is Captain Fugaku's son. He was brought to the Hidden Stones village battlefield a few days ago and now, it seems, has been brought to the Hidden Mist village front. But Itachi is indeed remarkable. A few days ago, he even killed an Hidden Stones village ninja with his own hands." Chapter 109, Shizue and Itachi Uchiha to kill an enemy at the age of 4 or 5. Shizue was incredibly surprised. Even though he was considered the clan's top genius, he didn't see blood until he graduated from the academy at 8 and completed his first mission. Tetsuka chuckled. Yes, Itachi didn't even flinch when he killed the enemy. Maybe that's what a real genius looks like, just like you. Shizue quickly dismissed the comparison. When he first saw blood, he had a strong sense of discomfort and it took him several days to adjust to his role as a ninja. However, he believed that Itachi must have felt something, perhaps confusion, just like he had. After noting Itachi's name, Shizue planned to find some time to talk to this young clan member. Maybe they could understand each other and become confidants. At that moment, Itachi Uchiha also seemed to notice Shizue and looked in his direction. The two exchanged glances and then looked away as if nothing had happened. Half an hour later, Fugaku returned to the Uchiha tent after attending a meeting in the command center.